complete.
Yo. 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 Yo.
What is going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, the Leo King, and Dr. Ann Wohlcke here for History in the Stars. On this Thanksgiving special, we're doing the history and astrology of Thanksgiving, which will be tomorrow. We're recording this on the night prior. There is no Thanksgiving Eve, technically.
There's not. The great turkey's not
No.
going to come and bring us gifts tonight.
No.
Oh, well. But anyway, happy early Thanksgiving.
Happy
and
Thanksgiving.
Gobble, gobble, as we say in my family.
Yeah,
Someone
I
always
think-
has to make turkey noises to someone else in my family. That's how.
Yeah, and
that's a tradition.
You know what? I feel like it's weird. This is like the first year in my life. I feel like people aren't really. I don't know. I think the energy of all this Pisces coming to an end. I think people are just tired, or they're overwhelmed, or they're just.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people forget gratefulness, though, and it's interesting because Thanksgiving is actually based off gratefulness of two different sides completely needing each other. I think what's sad about the history of Thanksgiving is its true history has been altered as far as like, really that the indigenous, Native Americans were unhappy, or that there was quarrels with the Pilgrims, when it was the opposite. Like they needed each other. Like literally. So it wasn't like a bunch of white people showed up and then forced their way.
Right. Well, yeah.
I mean, I know it's a little too personal, but that's the part that hurts me the most about this Thanksgiving story is like, if you think of the world today, everybody's at each other's throats, everybody's picking sides.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they tried to say about the history of Thanksgiving, when it's quite the opposite. Like they needed each other. They even signed a 50-year deal to where they would help each other out and be no issues. Like there was respect of space. There was no, it wasn't like Jamestown,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like people tried to take the Jamestown kind of like story and some of the stuff that happened there and kind of forcing, and then people make Jamestown look really good with, Disney movies and stuff like that. But like,
Jamestown looks horrible in Pocahontas, doesn't it?
well, I'm just saying like the
Savages.
idolization of Pocahontas and John Smith and all that stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know, I don't know, I have a picture we can start with.
Cool.
Because Thanksgiving is a really interesting holiday. I think we said we had never done the history of Thanksgiving as a show.
We haven't.
And so that's where we started today, where we started with an idea for the topic. But the thing is that Thanksgiving as a holiday is really it is a manufactured moment. It is based on something that actually happened, and a couple of things that actually happened. But here is kind of the traditional idea of what we think of as Thanksgiving, that it was this time after a year after the Pilgrims had come to America.
Right.
They had this really dreadful year trying to survive. And then they have this feast where everybody comes together. Although this is an interesting painting because there's not a whole lot of people who are Native Americans at the table. They're kind of over in another grouping off to the side. So even that as a moment of coming together is kind of interesting in this depiction. Right. But, the idea was that they had a harvest banquet where they came together and everybody had this moment of coming together. So that's one part of the Thanksgiving. But as people may know, I worked once at Colonial Williamsburg way, way back, and
Right.
I worked there for a summer. And one of the first things I learned hanging out there in Williamsburg and near Jamestown is that they're very insistent that the first Thanksgiving actually happened in Jamestown, or they were when I was there. And that is true because all of the people who were in Jamestown, they were more sort of your merchants that had joined the Virginia Company, and their idea was they wanted to go find the next Peru
Right.
and find riches and bring that back to England. And when that didn't work out and people weren't farmers and, were starving and eating each other, unfortunately,
Right.
when they got
Win-win.
through a lot of that, they had a Thanksgiving service. And I think that's the thing I wanted to start with, was this idea of a Thanksgiving really started as it was a traditional type of religious service, like within the Church of England, that they would have services of Thanksgiving after victories or on the coronation of a new monarch. When there were these moments to be grateful for, they would have a special religious service that then it was a service that you would have in your Book of Common Prayer. So if you're thankful that you survived a winter, you might have a Thanksgiving. So then way up in the future, actually, I should say this. There's also in the American Revolution, George Washington made a proclamation that there should be this day of Thanksgiving the 3rd of October in 1789. And he issued this proclamation that there should be this national day of Thanksgiving. So this is the idea of just having a national day for being grateful, not connected yet to the Puritans. So that's like the first presidential, so it was already this idea nationally, we should have a day of Thanksgiving,
Right.
which many countries do, right?
They
And
do.
so this is just where he says here, I recommend and assign Thursday, the 26th day of November to next. So it was just that year, to be devoted by the people of these states to the service of that great and glorious being who is the beneficent author of all the good that was, that is, or that will be, that we may then all unite in rendering unto him our sincere and humble thanks for his kind care and protection of the people of this country, previous to their becoming a nation, for the signal and manifold mercies and the favorable interpositions of his providence, which we experienced in the course and conclusion of the late war, for the great degree of tranquility, union, and plenty, which we have since enjoyed, the peaceable and rational manner in which they've been able to establish constitutions of government for safety and happiness, particularly the national one now lately instituted for the civil and religious liberty, which we are blessed. So, it was all supposed to just be this public day of gratitude.
Yeah. And it's kind of an interesting, the connection that I find the most interesting, especially in America for it, especially in the United States of America, right? Because the Mayflower Compact, which I'm sure we're going to get into, is the first by the people, for the people document we know of a democratic idea of people ruling each other. And it's because of that document and the Pilgrims and the Mayflower's arrival in Plymouth, and then what they had to go through to survive, to finally then, in the year that follows, finally make it to a Thanksgiving, that America adopts it based off that moment, because America then becomes a similar experience. The gratefulness of survival, providence, separating from a tyrant king of England. It's the same story.
The same story as the Puritans, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Or what we know as pilgrims, but yeah.
Right.
For
I guess,
Mayflower pilgrims.
you know
They're
what,
technically pilgrims.
I shouldn't even say Puritans because they're not Puritans.
No.
They were separatists.
Right, yeah. They're
Because
yeah.
pilgrims or Puritans wanted to stay within the Church of England and purify it. But the
Right.
Pilgrims wanted to leave because
Yeah, they really
James was
didn't have
not
it.
doing what they wanted to. And they're like, we're not staying here and hoping he purifies it. We want to get out, find our own community, and figure out how to live in a way so that we can be saved as a community, right? I mean, their whole thing was, at that time, there were a lot of people thinking it was the end of the world. And that's another thing I think is really interesting looking at this history. So in the like 1604, 5, then up to 1620, there were a lot of people writing about how it was the end times. They were looking at Revelation, especially Revelation chapter 12 and chapter 20, I think, that was motivating people to try to look for alternative ways to live. There was the 30 Years' War that was breaking out in Europe in 1618.
Right.
And a lot of fighting also even in the Dutch Republic, where the Puritans, the Pilgrims had gone to find a different way to be able to have a community. And it was like they couldn't get away from the things that they thought were preventing them to living their best, most godly lives. Because it was like they had that sense of preparing for some sort of, revelation,
or at least some sort of end times
connection.
Yeah,
so I'm dying to know what the astrology is. Is Neptune in Pisces at this time, or what was going on?
No, that's what I find so interesting. I think it's kind of fun to kind of just take where we're at. Mm-hmm. It's Thanksgiving, do the history, and like kind of see, because we know the build up. We've been covering so much about the Reformation, and if you think about it, in less than 100 years, right? Like 1620, and the Pilgrims leaving England, and then arriving at the end of 1620 in Plymouth. Like, what's that astrology? What makes it's almost kind of like more of a discovery of like what's the astrology that makes something like that happen, where people are finally fed up and leave, and also willing to risk their lives.
Yeah. So you want to know what is it about that moment that makes them just finally go?
Yeah. Right? And then of course, looking at Thanksgiving Day itself and going, well, what made that happen? Because I think of the world today and I'm like, it almost is like the idea of Thanksgiving and the actuality of what Thanksgiving is like what the whole world needs a little bit.
Well, and that was the other point I was going to say, that if you look at the first actual real Thanksgiving as we think of it, right, where the Pilgrims were brought into the story and it was commemorated as a holiday in that way, it gets established by Sarah Josepha Hale, who was she's the one who wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb. And she was an editor of a women's journal,
right?
Godfrey's women's journal, or Godey's, I think, or Godey's. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. And it was because of the Civil War, right? So if you look at this, it's, she was an abolitionist. She was living in that world that was becoming more and more divided over that issue of slavery.
Right.
And she sees this divided country and she wants to bring people together. So she looks back to that first Pilgrims harvest dinner and says, here was an example of people coming together from these two completely different worlds and sitting together to, find something in common and to be in peace for a dinner, right? Right. So it's so she says, or it says, starting in the 1830s, Hale used her platform to campaign for Thanksgiving as an official holiday by petitioning several governors and succeeding U.S. presidents to make it an annual event. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln responded to Hale's campaign and set a longstanding tradition when he declared a Thanksgiving for the last Thursday in November. So then that day would continue to be set aside by presidents from 1864 to 1939, when President Roosevelt moved the holiday week back a week to extend the Christmas shopping season. So that's more like our heritage. In 1941, that law passed in Congress, establishing Thanksgiving for the fourth Thursday of November. So.
Reminds me of Christianity. Let's figure out what Easter is. We don't want to be on the same calendar as the Jews, like, you know.
Well,
And that's the literal like history, right? Like, oh, we don't want to be on the Passover, so they base it off the lunar cycle and the first right the first Sunday after the full moon.
and this one is the first, whatever Thursday, the Thursday where, the next day you can go out shopping. I'm wondering when the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was founded too. I didn't look that up because that would make sense if it was around the same time. Then it makes it all about, shopping. But also you can see the context of.
So that's what's interesting is that it's observed right when Neptune comes into Pisces.
1863 or 18.
Or sorry, what was it? 1848.
She started petitioning in the starting in the 1830s.
See, and then 4.
Yeah, 1864.
So the Civil War ends. That's the year Lincoln's assassinated. Like about right there. And that's the idea of two sides that hate each other and how to bring each other together.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so funny because the Thanksgiving story is not about two sides who hated each other. It was quite the opposite. They actually loved each other and cared for each other. That's what's so weird.
And the story now, like.
That's what I'm saying is they've created the story
Yeah.
that the Indian, the native, you can't even say fucking Indians anymore.
well, we know the names of the different tribes and stuff like that, right? But what's interesting was I asked ChatGPT, well, what's the most persistent misconception about Thanksgiving? And here is what it says. That it says it was the misconception about Thanksgiving is the idea that it was a moment of harmonious mutual celebration between the English settlers and indigenous people. Right. And it says the historical record gives us something far more precarious. And it tells the whole story that, historians have gone in and looked at the context more. And they know right before the Pilgrims arrived in Massachusetts, even though they were trying to go somewhere else, but they ended up there because of the weather. They were able to get off the boat eventually and find land because 80 to 90% of the people had died there because there had just been like a sort of like a plague. People used to say smallpox, but it was something related to the plague that they think hit the native people because of rats coming off of trading vessels. Because
from Jamestown.
It was some English fishermen, Portuguese coming from Spain, the Dutch. They were all active in that area as traders and for fishing, and that's how they think the people were exposed in the first place. So when the Pilgrims get there, they think, this is the story now, like how a historian would say it now is, wow, how providential. All this land is here and ready for us to use. And the people they would have seen it as, the land needs us and whatever. And then you have the two different views of how people viewed the land and those things come together. But it is still true also that the native people, that they did work with them at that point and learned how to cultivate the land and then they did have that harvest dinner. So that was the moment that during the Civil War, Sarah Hale is trying to remember and bring back. But what's interesting now is that we're at another time of division, right? So this is us in our thumbnail, David.
Right.
We will be the ones teaching the future all about a new Thanksgiving because it's sort of like, yes, I did go to the market yesterday and it was packed. So there are people who are preparing to cook for tomorrow, whatever they're calling it. But it's not something a lot of people say, hey, I'm excited about Thanksgiving. And, you can't really even say to a lot of people, Happy Thanksgiving, because there's so much of the bad publicity now. So now this moment that was supposed to be about people coming together can't be.
Right.
Right? The point was supposed to be we're going to pick a moment when people did come together. We're celebrating coming together as a nation. We're being grateful for all of the things we have as a nation. But now it's a really difficult time. So what do you think? Are we at a point where we establish a new type of celebration? Do we continue the old one? What does the astrology say?
I think that the Thanksgiving of 1621 is not going away because of its impacts. And so let's look at the astrology, and I'm going to use the astrology of the actual moment the Mayflower left England, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of history,
Right.
but like, what's sparking them to? Everybody's loaded on the Mayflower, and they are like, we are going where we don't know how it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't charting their course for Jamestown. They didn't want to be around any Englishmen, which is weird as Englishmen.
Well, they didn't want to be around Church of England people.
Right?
They didn't want
They really were looking for their own place. So it was, here, I'll make this easier to read here. Okay. So it was Uranus at the end of Cancer, with Mars in Cancer at that moment, getting ready for the conjunction. It was in Leo season. It was Saturn that had just come into Cancer, the south node that was in Gemini. So it's interesting. It's a north node in Sag, which is telling the world at that time, like, you need to go explore. And it's dealing with beliefs. And it's dealing with a lot of those themes. It was also a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in Taurus. So we just had the triple Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in 2020 in Capricorn. We always get them every 13 years, Jupiter-Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
The one prior was in Sag, and it was only one time. The last time we had 3 conjunctions of Jupiter-Pluto was in the 1950s when it was in Leo, and then in 2020. So at this time, though, it's the values of people and their beliefs have finally reached the point, if you really think, since going back where we've been going 1533 in the Reformation, right? Less than 100 years later, finally Jupiter, Pluto are in Taurus, while at the same time, here's Uranus in Cancer finishing up, where the people are like, I do not feel home here. This feels alien. And I will go and North Node Sag, Neptune in Libra, and that's what's so interesting is that's the same Neptune Libra that then happens, if you do the math in your head, 100 and, what's it, 1620 to 1776 is 156 about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Neptune was in Libra in 1776, right? So if you think about this fairness thing, I find that Neptune in Libra is where we see people have the spiritual vision and providence to actually do what's right and just. Aries, it's through war.
Well, okay, so was Neptune in Libra during World War II then?
Yeah, it was, yes.
I think we might have looked at that before.
Right. Though that had Saturn in opposition, Saturn in Aries. Then it went into Taurus when World War II technically started, which date you want to use. I always look at the invasion of Poland, right? But, there's a lot that I think, like the Neptune, I think, World War II is horrible. It's horrible. But the Civil War is like gruesome. It's gruesome.
Well,
and it's racist, and it's, I own these people. I mean, there's some of that, of course, in World War II too. But it's all in the same country. People write each other off fully and are willing to go fight their brethren, right? Like there's something a little bit more gruesome about Neptune and Aries. But I think what's interesting is there's a lot of transits during 1620 that are in many ways very much connected. Like if you think about Pluto and Aquarius with Neptune and Aries, like we're in, like this is what it's going to be like 90 years from now.
So we will have gotten to a point where people feel like they need to get out of here.
Right.
Because
but
it's so
what's
bad
weird
for
is,
them.
of course, Uranus wasn't in the same position in the 1530s. Like we have Neptune and Aries now, and we have Pluto and Aquarius, right, in 2025, which is the exact same sextile degrees as the Reformation. And even during the weeks of when the actual Reformation really is kind of the big one of Henry VIII being, you know, excommunicated, is exactly when Charles III just went back to the Catholic Church. Like you can't make that up, right? We've covered that. So this Uranus, though, is going through in the decade prior to this. So 1610, 1607, Uranus and Gemini, which we're coming into, right? So there's that kind of like Uranian moment happening that we're going through. That's just, I mean, Uranus is not that long. It's 7 years in a sign. So, oh, okay. And ironically, World War II is Uranus Gemini. So this would have been like after that feeling of World War II. And like what happened after World War II? Immigration. People came to America. Uranus Cancer. So there's Uranus Cancer is very like the freedom of people to move their home country and move around. But with Mars, and then there was the South Node in Cancer prior to that, just by 1619, and the eclipses in Cancer and in Capricorn, but with the North Node in Capricorn. So we had the opposite in 2020. It was North Node Cancer, South Node Capricorn. So I find it interesting, though, that this is like where it's actually about people moving around, sick of what's transpired. The belief value systems have finally reached a point. And if you think about what King James the First of Scotland and England was doing, was coming down hard on people with the religion, which was a fear that the English people thought they had lost because of Queen Elizabeth the First. Like, Queen Mary was the one that scared people, or people loved, because she was Bloody Mary, and it was about the religious parts. And she was the daughter of Queen Catherine, who had her marriage annulled by King Henry, right? So it was like Mary tried to bring the hammer down, and James went, well, I'm going to create my own Bible. I'm going to come down on anybody who doesn't follow this at all, period. So Henry came on people too, but not like James.
No, James is completely different, and people should watch our whole thing on King James and the Bible and all that for more information. But, you know, one of the things I was hoping we could talk about is this. We know that our astrology right now is very connected to the era of the Reformation, the era of Henry VIII. And we talked about that last time. So, but if we zoom forward in history to the 1580s, that's when we start to see, towards the end of Elizabeth's reign, what happened. Well, what happened under Queen Elizabeth I is that she had this act of settlement where she didn't want people to have to define what they believe. Right. Now, the Church of England was kind of Catholic looking in its rituals, but she allowed for a lot of leeway in how people could practice. And people had a lot of hope by the 1580s that she'd be able to, like, that there would be reform, and that people like the Puritans thought maybe one day the church will actually be purified and we can change our practices. So they really thought there could be some change. People like the dissenters or the separatists, the ones who wanted to leave the church and practice their own more Protestant beliefs that would have been more more like what James the First, when he was James the Sixth, more like what was happening in Scotland. They
Right.
thought it could be less focused on the idea of a Trinity, for example. Like they wouldn't have had that same view. They wanted to have their version of the Bible in English, or, there were certain things they thought were going to get better in England. They were hopeful when Elizabeth died, or when she's nearing the end of her life and it's clear, oh, King James VI of
Right.
Scotland's coming in. He's going to be king. Scotland's Presbyterian. The Scottish Church,
Right.
is Presbyterian, which means it's organized from the ground, or from like the congregations up. There's not a bishop. And we talked about this. So the problem is when James gets to England, he thinks, oh, like I get to be the bishop. I get to be in charge. That was totally different than Scotland, where
Oh, yeah.
they're fighting people all the time. You have to keep under control. And his power was always being contested, and he was being ridiculed. And he gets to England and he says at the Hampton Court Convention or Congress, he says, no bishop, no king. And he says, I'm keeping the structure of the Church of England because I get to be the head of the church. I am the bishop and the king, or I'm the head.
Right.
And he got excited about his own power. And the next thing you know, the Puritans realize we have to get out of here because he's not going to change. And he's negotiating for his children to marry. Was it a son or I guess a son. He's negotiating to have his son marry a Spanish Catholic princess. So the people like the separatists, like the Pilgrims, realize there's no hope. England's only getting more to what they think is like more Catholic in practice.
Right.
They know it's not going to become Catholic. The Pope's not going to be brought back. But James also decides he's not going to tolerate separatists. And
Right.
that's why they have to leave, right? And they go to Leyden in the Dutch Republic.
Right.
And that's fine for a while. They establish their own community there. But pretty soon their kids, this is why I said, like before, when we've talked about people who immigrate to new cultures, the kids always turn into wherever they go. The kids are going to rebel against their parents in some way, right? Even in separatist Puritan type households or pilgrims, right?
Right.
That they start to become too Dutch and too worldly. And that's why the Pilgrims think we need to get out of here and we can't go back to England. And that's when they start thinking about America.
Yeah. And I think, this is, of course, from the Mayflower Society. This is actually like one of the best of the Pilgrims signing the compact, but this is on board the Mayflower before they go on the land.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people,
Yeah.
forget that they signed this thing before they went on the land. Like, we need to make sure we're all on the same page here and we've got this all figured out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think contrasting with what you were just talking about with where James was and all that, like it was that serious that when they're already 3,000 miles away in an ocean and nobody's going to come find them in 1620, good luck finding somebody on a boat in the middle of the ocean and where they went to track them down.
Well, especially since they accidentally ended up in that particular location.
Yeah. And the
because of the
worst
weather.
location too. It was all rocks.
Right.
But most people were almost, a lot of people died. A lot of people had the speedwell to turn back and take all the wounded people. And so it's that dire though, that it's like, before we go, it's not like we made it, get on the land right now. We need to figure this compact out first. So if you think August 5th, by November, you're already there. And you've been through a lot. And all these men have their wives and their kids with them too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people dying. Scurvy, you name it, people are dying. And there are not a lot of people. I think people might think the Mayflower was like Noah's Ark or something, with every animal on it or something. No, it was in the 50s, like about 50 plus people.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a lot of people to like have to create a community. And when you have kids and women, it's not, okay, how many of them are guys who are going to build homes and do all this kind of stuff. So that's why what I find really interesting is like the Mayflower Compact being such a big thing for the world of like people forming their own structured way of, you could really call it a government, to govern themselves. And then at the same time, the seriousness behind the Mayflower Compact of it like being kind of like in their own like manifestation of like to protect themselves, to say, we're not obliged to do what James the First wants in England. We're not citizens there. We are part of this Mayflower Compact, and this is our Plymouth Rock, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really the first big event in, I don't know, you're the historian, but like, I'm sure there was things like this that went on in ancient history, or at least, you know, during like the Crusades and stuff, but it really is kind of, everybody's always coming back home. Nobody's really like religiously too, but without really defining their religion either. That's the interesting part. It's not like we're all this, you know. It was more like we all believe in Christ and we're Christians, but we have no idea what our version even looks like yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking King James Bibles with us, and we're taking the Geneva Bibles, but right. So it's like they don't really know what they are, which I find the most interesting. But the core is we need to get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're willing to do that and be in that little boat. That boat is tiny, by the way.
Yeah.
And it was not a brand new boat, right? They had to buy it in Amsterdam. So it was a Dutch boat.
Oh, I was thinking that it was English for some reason, that they went to buy it in England.
No, it was like
but
1617, I think it was. I had the Mayflower. Oh, well, these are just some of the images. Like this is the famous image that's actually used of them signing the compact in the boat before they go out. Of course, this wasn't taken in 1620, and there was no painter there.
No.
But from the descriptions of, you know, like Bradford, who was the governor, you know, and all that stuff, and my great grandfather sitting there smoking the pipe.
Well, you know, I just found out people can, okay, my family is Irish and German immigrants and all of that. Well, I was going down the Irish line and find out, oh, it's starting to turn English. And I just found out today, because I was thinking I need to follow this line and make sure, see if I have any people who came on the Mayflower. Jokingly, I'm thinking that, but no, I actually do. It was Mary Chilton Winslow. And she was one of there were 3 women who survived to that harvest dinner, the first Thanksgiving, right?
Right.
And she's one of them. I think she was 13 or 14 on the ship.
Yeah. So they left Holland and purchased the boats, and they purchased the Speedwell and the larger Mayflower and took them into England.
Okay.
Because for historical context, why does Amsterdam have a red light district today still, right? This idea of freedom is actually Dutch, which is so ironic. The printing presses really being the first ones to not have to follow what the Catholic Church is saying to do, and scientific papers, the biggest occult museums, and especially schools for occult is in Amsterdam.
Yeah, and the people who were looking for the books, but also the tools to do science or to do astronomy. And
right.
All those things were in the Netherlands.
Yeah, and the first encyclopedias were all printed out of Amsterdam, too.
Yeah, everything good. Maps also were drawn and engraved and printed in different Dutch cities.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that the Pilgrims would have gone there because of that freedom.
Yeah.
But because the 30 Years' War is starting in 1618, and the Spanish are having issues, the Spanish are trying to expand their power in the Dutch Republic. I mean, it's a republic, first of all. That's different, right? This is a republic they moved to, but the Spanish were threatening to expand as well. So they knew it was time to get out of there with all the different things.
But it's also the Flying Dutchman, right? The Dutch were the best traders of all time in history, as far as like innovation with all their boats and how they could get across the world. Like they could compete. And at many times they were ahead of the British, and then the British caught up eventually.
Well, they had to marry into, I think, is it Charles II's wife who was Dutch? I can't remember.
Right.
They marry into that. And then William and Mary come over William is Dutch and brings a lot of that wealth to England, right? So, the Dutch were lucky enough that they found the spices that everybody wanted.
Right.
They had the nutmeg and they had all sorts of good spices.
They kind of put a lot of people to shame when it came to trading. That's why they're called the Flying Dutchman. And that's why you see a lot of old, like in the old world, like British claimed colonies with Dutch ones next door, like the Indies, for example. The British had the West, the Dutch had the East. Of course, Dutch Indonesian East, right? So, but that's what's so interesting is that you always see and then the French had their spots too, but nothing like the Dutch or the English. Those are the two. So it's kind of interesting. Like that's the one place you would want to go. And then where's going to be a lot of ships? Amsterdam, Leiden, where the ports are, because the Dutch had so many ships and so many traders, and it was an industrial industry as well that was happening through trade. So you could buy ships there. There were ships that you didn't need to build, you know.
Right.
But the other part, which of course they probably don't go on to it here, is that they had to take out loans.
Yep.
And it was through English banked loans, not Amsterdam loans, and pay the money back to where they made a guarantee. When we get to this new place, whatever we find there, whatever it is, hopefully we get beaver or something. That's what it ended up being, is like beaver and fur and stuff like that. Whatever we find, we'll send back to pay back our debts, and we'll sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so that went on for a decade after they land. But that's what's interesting. So they borrow money on this guarantee to trade back unknown goods that they're going to find.
But also what's so funny or interesting about the whole thing is they also had to go to England to be able to get a patent, because they are English. And even though they're living in the Dutch Republic, they're English subjects. So they need, if they're going to do it right and they want to go to an English colony, they have to go to England and get a patent to be able to have permission from the king to go. And they get permission, but they get permission to go to Virginia. They were supposed to be going to an area north of, not Jamestown. They were going to a different area of Virginia.
Right.
And when they got to New England instead, this is one of the stories behind the Mayflower Compact, is that some of the people on the ship said, hey, we're not in Virginia. We don't have to obey the monarch anymore. We can just go start our own thing.
Right.
But obviously you think, we're kind of outnumbered if the British actually get over here, and we probably should stay allied to the king. And James had given them permission to be able to do their own thing with his permission as English subjects. So you don't want to invite some sort of invasion where the British are going to wipe you out. So I think the Mayflower Compact was them saying, no, we're not going to just create some kind of anarchic religious state. I don't know what, because they also were going to form their ideal religious community. But they do want to do it in a legal way. They want to have this compact that shows they have structure to what they're doing.
So it's funny because the guy, John Robinson, who proposed the idea of doing this, this was his analogy, that they felt like ancient Israelites leaving Babylon to escape bondage by returning to Jerusalem, where they would build their temple. The Pilgrims and Puritans actually referred to them as God's new Israel, writes Peter Marshall. It was therefore considered the destiny of the Pilgrims and Puritans to similarly build a spiritual Jerusalem in America. And that's quite interesting because it's like taking very Old Testament
Yeah.
ideas, but then they aren't Israelites, which is so funny, right? They're not that, but using that as an analogy of like, maybe there is a providence that this happens where they're connecting James the First as Babylon
Mm-hmm.
and the English Empire, the British Empire as that, which I think is really interesting. So it's almost like you kind of got to do whatever you got to do. And hey, we got the hall pass to go and do this, and we were able to get the money to do this and all that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But the other thing was not everybody could go. So there was a lot more people, but not everybody could go. And so, that everybody was super sad because they had to leave, right? So August 5th, or back then, July 26th, depending on which calendar you use, 1620 they leave. But they started with the 65 passengers for the Mayflower. And then, of course, there was the Speedwell. The Speedwell had a leak, so it had to...
So it didn't speed
So
well.
it didn't speed well, but it did speed well. That's the irony, right? And then once it starts going, the Speedwell catches up to the Mayflower halfway through the journey. And here on this part, I know this story too well, but the first half was calm seas, but then, of course, like any good story, it gets crazy. And during the storm, there was also a baby born, Oceanus Hopkins. And so there was an indentured servant to the physician of Samuel Fuller who died on the voyage and was buried at sea. And then a baby was born. And then during another storm so fierce that the sails could not be used, the ship was forced to drift without hoisting its sails for days, or else risk losing her mast. And that's where John Holland went overboard and he made it out. And he sank about 12 feet, but they used rope and pulled him out. It's kind of interesting because my wife is from that line.
Oh, really?
The passengers were forced to crouch into a semi-darkness below deck. So really it gets to where here's actually like a rendition of Mayflower 2, but like what the cabin would have been like.
Oh, they actually have a brick...
Yeah, this is Mayflower
stove.
2, so it's like a
It has
replica,
all the
and it's
modern-
actually a real replica, meaning it was used. It was Mayflower 2. This isn't the Mayflower one, but that's what you were in with 65 people.
Well, it was probably a lot nicer than being on a pirate ship or something with a bunch of stinky people.
right.
I mean, pilgrims did believe in cleanliness.
But yeah, so like the Speedwell is the one that comes through and takes the people who are injured and so forth. And I'm surprised they're not going into that part.
I just think it's so interesting how well organized they were, because we kind of have this mythic vision or romanticized vision that they all got in this little boat and they went, and that it barely made it, and they, stumbled out on the rock. And I don't know, I'm thinking of how many portrayals of it we've seen in popular media somewhere. But they had a whole community behind them.
Right.
They had to have people who could do the banking and raise the money and find the right boats, and then make sure they had people who would be able to do labor once they got there, and people who could be diplomats with the people, whoever they encountered, and people who knew, because I think that they were connected up the coast as well, right, to different traders and things. Like they had connections in the colonies or in other colonies as well.
Yeah, here's an interesting fact about the Speedwell. It was even put in American money in 1837. It was commissioned to be put on a $10,000 bill about the trials of being on the Speedwell, the other boat. Can you believe that?
A $10,000 bill
Yeah.
in what year?
So
That
it's
was
weird
worth
because
a
that's his
lot.
Federal Reserve note. But in 1837, Weir was commissioned United States Congress to paint a historical. Oh, so that painting of the depiction, and then it was in when year did that?
1918.
1918, the $10,000 bill.
That's crazy. I wonder how many of
Let's
those
read that.
they
It's like,
printed.
oh, this note is receivable by all national, and yeah. So this is the beginning of the Federal Reserve. That first 5 years, right? It's been used in fiction, but oh yeah, here it is. 11 people from the Speedwell boarded the Mayflower, leaving 20 people to return to London, including Cushman. So this is my line. Robert Cushman is my direct ancestor. Like my great grandma's last name is Cushman, right? So it stayed that long down the line. But he had to captain everybody back. So while a combined company of 102 continued the voyage for a third time, Mayflower headed for the New World. She left Plymouth on 6 September 1620 and entered Cape Cod. Speedwell's replacement, the Fortune, and that's where actually my grandfather, Palmer, his line took the Fortune. That came in 1621. So it's weird that both my grandparents are direct lines to those two ships, the Mayflower and the Fortune. It's really weird. But that's what's crazy about that whole, like, the Mayflower did not have a nice journey. Neither did the Speedwell. So for them to even make it there, right? Like once they get there and there's a baby, the landing, it's all rock. It's not. So I have the picture of them landing, and I actually bought this because I'm in the Mayflower Society. This is the boat in the background. It's such a high quality one. That's why I bought it. So I can zoom in, right? So there's the Mayflower. So they had to anchor way off and take small boats with the women and children, and it's November. It's freezing. It's cold. It's stormy. And it's all rock.
Yeah.
Hence it's called Plymouth Rock.
Yep.
So and these people are wondering, what the fuck did I just do? Right?
Yeah.
So it's quite an interesting kind of moment. This is my this is my ninth great grandfather, Isaac Allerton. That's his wife, and that's Mary Allerton, who was the youngest besides the baby that was born, but didn't make it all the way there, had to go back on the Speedwell. So the youngest passenger is Mary Allerton. That's my eighth great grandmother.
Wow.
And then Fear, his wife, dies right when they get there. So my ninth great grandmother dies right when they get there.
I looked it up, and it was 102 passengers who left, and after 1 year there were 50 to 53 left. So
yeah, like I said, the 50s. So it's not a lot of people. And just so people know too, then Sophia's direct ancestor, great grandfather, is right here, John Holland. So like my great grandfather on one side keeping it together with one of the oars, and hers holding it together. Is that crazy?
yeah.
But I think that's
weird.
the best picture of what really transpired. It's like there's even decorum of bringing the ladies onto this rock in the storm. Like, come on, dear.
Yeah, I mean, here's the funny thing, that what's so interesting in our world today is that a lot of people think, actually it did kind of turn into this thing in the United States where you were very elite if you could show your lineage to the Mayflower, right?
Right.
That you're to the original Mayflower, not the Speedwell or the Fortune or whatever else. And what's so funny about that is that these people are total outcasts. Like they have no clue that one day they'll be thought of as these great people of the past, like these wonderful celebrated ancestors.
I'll counter you with something on that.
Oh, if they right? One day we will be
No.
we will be considered the greatest founders.
This will be a good. It's not even a conspiracy, right? But it's been talked about in our culture since that girl, when Obama became president, realized that every president but one, Van Buren, are all connected to the same bloodline.
Yeah.
And they all are connected to the Mayflower descendants. And it has to be the Mayflower. So none of the other votes matter.
And FDR is one of them too, right?
Oh, yeah. He's in my line big time, yeah. And I don't like him, but he is. But like, so...
Well, he's gaining notoriety these days. What's so funny is that it wasn't planned when Mom Donnie went to the White House with Trump, right?
Correct.
It wasn't planned like, oh, Thanksgiving is coming. Let's pose in front of this portrait, because FDR is the one who made Thanksgiving the last Thursday or whatever it is. But it's just funny that came up in the news. A lot of times I think those sorts of things.
So I'm going to show you why. And we'll just use my great-grandfather, who is one of the bigger names, right? Isaac Allerton is one of the top Mayflower compacts. He is a lieutenant, second command there right away. He was the money guy dealing with the trading. He also is the one who negotiated with the chief to make the settlement, the 50-year settlement pact. Mm-hmm. He's the one who did what nobody else would do, money, all of it, and then even did the trading to send all the money back and was involved in all of it, okay? Now, if you look at the weirdness, I'm going to show you some weird stuff here.
Okay. Let's see it.
With other people that are in this thing, because it's like, oh no, like here, they don't do that on this one anymore. That's fine. Oh, okay, yeah, all right. So he was married to Mary Norris, and she died. Okay.
Right.
So of course he takes up new wives, young wives, like Fear Brewster, 1606, right? And he has other kids and stuff. But when you go up to his line, his mom is Rose Davis and his dad's Edward Allerton. Rose Davis, look at FDR sitting right there. The lines of every Mayflower compact signer are all royal.
They go back to royalty then.
They all go back to royalty, Scottish and English.
So how many in the actual Mayflower were descended from royalty?
From my research right now of the compact signers.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like that Maine, I think it's like 23 of them or whatever. It's like 80% in my own research, because you go up and it's like, I go up and I'll be like, okay, who's Rose Davis? And then, oh, it's always to the Stradling family, the Chandlers, right? And then I can keep going up, like, depends on the people, right? But it'll get really kind of crazy. It's kind of like Sir William Allerton II, Sir William Allerton from 1475, who's connected to the Lady Joanne Golding line. And this, like, when I say like going back before the Reformation, and all connected to the Scottish and English kingdoms, like through it all, right? And when I look up these families, they're all connected, where they are lords, or everywhere you go. It's kind of like, and they're knights, and the wives. It's so you can also look at, like, there was a lot of, I'm not going to call it inbreeding, but when you have 50 people and women die and all that, they're going to marry the daughter of their buddy. And then now that, so in my line, I'm connected to like 8 families because of that, because then their kids are now mixing with those other kids. And when they have babies 10, 20 years later, that everybody is family, literally.
Right. Yeah.
So it's weird because why would America print money with stories from the whole Thanksgiving and the building up and then make it a big holiday and even have FDR shift the date and we right? Like it's all because they're in that line.
Mm-hmm.
That the line that connects them all is this. If you're not in this line, then you ain't in the line that connect. The way that it's like it like reminds me of that movie like In Time or whatever with Justin Timberlake, where you can only have so much time and you have to. Rich people have like as much life as they want, but there's all these barriers of where you live based off how much time you have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. Like if you want to know if you're connected to royalty, you have to be direct descendant in that line. That's like the first buffer. Then you can start seeing,
Mm-hmm. So there's another aspect of that then. If so many of these people are connected to royalty, why are they leaving England when James the First is on the throne? Like another thing you have to think about is, were they connected to a different line of royalty and they didn't agree with James the First on the throne? Like, or did they just think he is not an appropriate type of monarch? Because I think I know I've seen your royal ancestors, like you're connected. Was it through this line that you're connected to Henry VIII also, or no?
No.
And who is the person that these all go? I've seen that video, and like she says, they all go back to like one king. Which was the royal?
Charlemagne.
Charlemagne. That's right.
Which is the beginning of what we know today as the Catholic Church.
So there's something about these people that rejected James the First on the
Correct.
throne.
I think a lot of it is because if you take my grandfather example, he's got knights the whole way up, and they're all, or I'm connected to the sheriff of Nottingham through this line, like, and it's so funny that all the stories, the folk tale stories in life, like Robin Hood, that connects here. Everything, and then to the people it's like our whole heritage is kind of based upon this, which is really weird. So people like to look at like the Illuminati. Well, there was no Illuminati, like there was no Masons in 1620, right? That's why there's the Mayflower the Mayflower Society.
Mm-hmm.
That's the secret. So I think they pick every president based off of that. Because what's weird is Van Buren is the only one who's not, and ironic, he's Dutch.
So he's probably connected anyway in some other way.
But he's probably connected to the story where his ancestors sold the boat or something. I bet you that's what, if she was to really look, that little girl.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think she got the understanding of like, oh, then their line. She did do that to connect to Charlemagne. But that's crazy because most people can't go back because it's single name people, or you're actually named off just like a idea, like William the Conqueror, right? Like, and that's like, in the 1000s, like to get to the 800s and be connected is before, what's that book called? The book of, that has the first,
Doomsday Book?
The Doomsday Book, to go before that.
I think, yeah. I mean, that's why I was so amazed to find a Mayflower descendant in my line, or person in my line, because it was through this Irish line, and I don't remember at what point. It's like somebody went to, this is why. I think because Elizabeth and these people were starting to appoint people in Ireland, so they may not have. I don't know. It's always through the wives. Do you notice that?
Right,
if you go down the line, what is so fascinating about history is that we think it's all, like, people will say, it's all being told by men, and history is men, and we need to tell the women's story, right? women are always where the power is. If you look at these powerful
Right.
families, the man will make money, right? Especially when you get past the plague, past the era of the Black Death. You've got these new middle class people. They make a lot of money. And meanwhile, a lot of the royal families or noble families had been losing money. So the men with the money want the titles. So they marry the women
Right.
that have the history. And the women have so much power over what the family becomes. That's what's what
Right.
I've always thought so interesting is we think it's the men out there establishing
No,
the
it's
family
who
name.
the man marries.
Yeah, and the woman inculcates all the ideas and like teaches the traditions or doesn't.
And the
know?
women always come with their father being
Right.
in the position because of their mom that married them.
Yeah.
It goes up like that.
It is. It's so interesting. That's how it revealed to me.
Because
saw that.
that's how I get to Isaac Allerton is his daughter, Mary, marries Thomas Cushman,
Who was also on the Mayflower.
he wasn't on the
His
Mayflower,
family.
but his father, Robert Cushman, was the captain of the Speedwell.
Oh, okay.
And he's connected to Thanksgiving because who's the one that did the prayer at the Thanksgiving? Robert Cushman. Who's the one who
so
recorded
funny.
it and then took it back to England the next year to tell people in England about it to make it what it is? Robert Cushman.
Mm-hmm.
So the Cushman name gets the hall pass of not being on the Mayflower because it did the duty take people back. But then Robert brings his son Thomas. And then that's when, of course, he meets Mary, who's young, and then they get married. And that's what's really weird is like, like those two lines fully for me are like intertwined at that point, right? Like, so like that's kind of like weird, like.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also you have to keep in mind that people had like the ancestor I was looking at had 10 kids when she got married. And then I noticed that her sister, or no, not her sister, somebody marries another person with like, I guess it's her husband. You see his name again with another woman. Like, so you've got all these siblings marrying the other siblings. And so it's not like they're marrying their own cousins or whatever. They're just all these many siblings are marrying each other.
Right.
So.
Right. So I think that's what's like kind of crazy is I'm going to show you like how this works here. So like here's, this is what's really weird. Like here's me and Sophia down here. Man, this thing needs like, I'm on a computer. Okay, there we go. And then it goes to my dad, Palmer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because my grandfather married Joanne Grill Palmer. So we're going to then go and look at my grandma's line. And her mom is Florence T. Grill, but it's her mom. So my grandma's grandma, who's Maud Cushman, right? That carries that Cushman name that whole way up. Mary Cushman. And so Mary comes from the original Mary, who was originally Allerton.
Mm-hmm.
That whole line is from because of the woman, or even for me. My grandfather marries my grandma, who's a Cushman. That's how this whole thing works in the presidential thing. So everybody always looks at, and I guarantee you 100%, if you're not a Mayflower Society member, then you don't become president. So I don't think, that's why Kamala Harris doesn't win.
Was Obama's family connected?
Yeah,
I think that you
big
said
time.
that, right?
Yeah, Obama's family is fully in there.
Yeah.
So that's where it's that's why, this idea anybody will be president is a lie. You have to be connected. That's the weird thing of this Thanksgiving part, because the first month they're there, it's the worst situation. But that's where we have to get this history correct, because it's really not true that there was all this bullshit. Like I just really can't. I mean, I'm not going to pull out all my Mayflower society stuff, but let's just use Wikipedia here. The first winter. So they get there, right? They're ill prepared. It's a bitter winter. They don't have anything. They don't have huts. They don't have tents. So they're like kind of like using the shoreline, using the old boat, using how to get through, and they were not prepared at all. So Bradford, who was the governor, wrote, "Some of our people that are dead took the original of their death here on the expedition." Plymouth faced many difficulties. People were sick, starvation. From the beginning, the assistance they received from the local Native Americans was vital. One colonialist journal reported, "We dug and found some more corn, 2 or 3 baskets full, and a bag of beans. In all, we had about 10 bushels, which would be enough to seed. It is with God's help that we found this corn, for how else could we have done it without meeting some Indians who might trouble us?" But they didn't. Friends, if we ever make a plantation, God works a miracle, especially considering how scant we shall be of victuals, and most of all, ununited amongst ourselves, and devoid of good tutors and leaders. Violence will break all. Where is the meek and humble spirit of Moses and of Nehemiah, who has re-edified the walls of Jerusalem and the state of Israel? I see not in reason how we shall escape even the gasping of hunger-starved persons, but God can do much, and his will be done. So it's like, it's dire, and people have scurvy, pneumonia, tuberculosis.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time that they set foot, December 1620, and upon a bare rock on a bleak coast, while all the earth was covered with deep snow, dreary indeed was the prospect before them. And honestly, it's kind of like, that's where you're like, I guess it's just going to be shitty. And if you think of the astrology, right, like the summer of Leo, Uranus at the end of Cancer, let's just move to that December. Like, what would that have been like? So, like, oh, people are going through that, right? Mars, Neptune conjunction, Saturn retrograde in Cancer, Uranus in Leo now, retrograde. It looked good, and then, so when Uranus was in Leo last time for us, right? If you think about Uranus, Leo, it's like there's moments where it kind of feels like that with the 1950s, like, like we go into Uranus Cancer in 47, and then in the 50s, we're building America and the American dream. And then all these people, they get the car, the house, and they do the barbecues. And then the first Uranus retrogrades is where you start seeing, like, I guess my husband just drinks and doesn't come home, and women have to form alliances as housewives. It's not all you think it is. Uranus kind of up throws your, especially in Leo, like your fantasy happy thing, because Uranus doesn't like Leo.
I'm wondering what was happening to James at that point, though, because
he's near the end.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking, okay,
up,
to James, December.
I just put for the 5th, but like if you just think by that Christmas, I mean, you can just do the astrology in your head. There's Jupiter-Pluto meeting again. So this is where it was a triple Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. That's big times. The 1950s, 2020.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. It's saying in December 1620, King James I was grappling with a significant confrontation with Parliament, which protested his right to imprison members of Parliament. He reacted by tearing out the page, recording the protestation from the House of Commons Journal, a move that led to the imprisonment of Sir Edward Coke on December 27th. So Parliament, so with that Uranus retrograde in Leo, he's been in England thinking, I get to be the king and the bishop or the head of the church.
Mm-hmm.
I have all this power, and Parliament's pushing back at that point. Right.
Yeah.
And he's overstepping.
Yeah.
So-
And that's where it's like Jupiter, Pluto, and Taurus, and it's a triple conjunction, like how it was in Capricorn in 2020, where it's like, oh, here I gave you what you wanted. Do you like it now? Right? There's that Pluto being like, and Pluto hates to be in Taurus.
So was Pluto Jupiter?
Pluto would be
together
technically
this
at
point,
fall in Taurus, right?
Huh.
And even though as astrologers, modern astrologers, we're debating the outer planets right now of their like where they are supposed to be in the essential dignities. That's why you don't see them ever defined.
Wait, astrologers are debating that right now?
Yeah, but nobody, because we really integrated all these in this last century. So, as an astrologer yourself, you kind of have to like figure it out yourself. There's no like official essential dignities. We use that, and because essential dignities really came through ancient astrology and traditional astrology, modern astrology they're all too woke and too scared to define it. But it's pretty easy. Like if Pluto's in Aquarius, right, that's going to be detriment or maybe fall. It all really depends, because if you think about Mercury, its opposition is Gemini or is Sag, and that's where it's at its detriment, right? Usually the opposition is a detriment. So sorry, Pluto would be at its detriment in Taurus. To me, Pluto in Aquarius is fall, because Pluto likes emotion and intensity, and Aquarius wants to get the fuck away. Right? So Pluto is exalted in Leo, because passion and love together is what Pluto wants, company with happiness, right? So if you think about Jupiter, Pluto conjunct in detriment, but then Uranus is in detriment in Leo, because Uranus rules Aquarius. So there's a lot of detrimental stuff happening. But what that means is it looks, and these are different ones than we've ever experienced. Like we have never experienced Pluto and Taurus. Mixed with Uranus and Leo, that's very like, we get the good stuff, and then the retrograde would be like, this is not, it's almost a question like, did I ask for too much? Is this really that good? That's the winter of 1620. Right? And so even it's chaos for James at that time. Right?
Wow, the world's first working submarine designed by Dutch inventor Cornelius Drebbel on the River Thames.
I wonder if that's what the Confederates stole.
I don't know.
Right? Like maybe they found that, and because they're the ones who create the first submarine used in warfare in the Civil War. Not the Union.
Yeah.
But like that. So I think that's what's kind of interesting about the astrology is like, that's pretty big shifts of Uranus moving out of Cancer into Leo.
Oh, could we see the chart again?
Sorry. Yeah. Uranus moving out of Cancer into Leo. So they leave at the end of Uranus, which, we're at the end of Uranus right now in Taurus. When it really comes into Gemini again, all of our journeys in the world, it's going to be a different place. When you see outer planets doing weird shit like this, or Jupiter, Pluto, to me, I've used that as my prediction about travel because it was Capricorn connected to the Leo one. But this one in Taurus, like this is about people's values and the question of those values very deeply, and the beliefs on them, and having to reform new belief-based systems off new values that are being gutted away and new ones that must be forged.
Now, do you find that even more interesting with the North Node in Sagittarius?
Yeah, because then it's dispositing Jupiter, and then it's with Pluto. So it's like, this is a harsh reality that's where we might, like, it's not a journey that I love Sag, but they all just think it's so great.
But they all went to Jamestown, I think.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, but that's what's hard, is that Sag is telling you this is an adventure of a lifetime, but with an extreme cost you won't see. an extreme edge. And there's a lot of death, right? Think about Jupiter's with Pluto. And a triple conjunction, meaning that Jupiter's going retrograde over Pluto, and then it will do it crossover again. Because if you just move the next month, you could see Jupiter, Pluto conjunct, right? Look at that. And Jupiter on the other side of Pluto. So they did conjunct 3 times. And I found in astrology, when Jupiter and Pluto meet 3 times, that's life-changing. Like that's where the world and culture changes the most. So we were living the 1950s lifestyle, and then by the time 2020 came, it's like there's nothing there connecting to it. So like even right now this week, like the transportation secretary is trying to have people dress like the 50s when you go on a plane now. You really think people are following that? No. Like the main story is people are rebelling against that. Like I don't want to have to get out of my comfy sweatpants.
Well,
like, we're not going back to the
Okay.
1950s, right?
That is not fair, because if you look at a plane from the 1950s, they had room, they had nice big seats.
Right.
Like you could get on there in your nice clothes.
Like a Leo, like a king. That was Jupiter, Pluto, and Leo 3
Right.
times. That created
Wow.
the American family to have the access to actually take a flight somewhere.
Yeah, but now we're all cramped in there. I mean, if you were in first class, okay, dress like a king, but not
Right.
back in coach.
But in Capricorn, which we're living through, and the opposition next year, you think travel's bad now? It's going to hit its peak creepy moment. We've seen so many plane accidents, delays, the government letting people go and furloughing. Next year, when they oppose, they'll probably gut all these systems, and the TSA will be gone, and like air traffic controllers are going to have to be hired by the airport direct. No more federal thing. That's what I believe based off the astrology. But this is like ironic because it's travel based off value. So, and then having to like forge new values, which is very much their story, like, and create too, right? It's like the journey requires me to create a fucking village when we don't have shit. We have a bunch of kids and girls, and there's only so many dudes here, and we already lost a bunch of people that died. And we're having to meet up with people who have completely different values and physically look different than Native Americans, and rely on trust Pluto on them.
Mm-hmm. But in a way, what's happening to them in the colonies is kind of mirroring what's happening in Europe on that level, because people in Europe are fighting. It's not necessarily a religious war, the 30 Years' War, but you're fighting, your Catholic neighbor, the Catholic neighbors, and you were the Protestants. You're the ones that went Protestant, and at the same time, some states are starting to make alliances with people who have the different religious beliefs. And so you're sitting there thinking, wow, now I have to get along with these people to fight a war? Or I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of division happening in Europe as well. But the Pilgrims are facing that they thought that they're acting like Moses. They're going on this exodus. They're finding this new place where they can build their city on a hill. Like that was, I think, one of William Bradford's speech. I can't remember who said that. And with making a biblical allusion, right? He's talking about the Bible in doing that. But they get there and they're struggling, and they keep struggling. They find these people that are going to help them, but then they have to figure out a way just to negotiate to live with the people they encounter. So it wasn't this paradise they thought. And a lot of that had to do with, so Neptune is in Libra, you said. I don't know if this has anything to do with the fantasies that they bought, but in the Dutch Republic, because it was a center of printing, they would have been exposed to all of these books all about the New World. So at the same time, they're learning, like they're exposed to all these ideas about the end of the world that would have been printed. But at the same time, the reason they think of the Americas is there had been all these new books and new maps and drawings that showed, here's what the New World looks like. You can go there. you have all these resources. The land is fertile. They think there's no one else around that can corrupt our beliefs. And they
Right.
get there and like they find something that's not exactly the same. And then they have to go ahead and try to still build their ideal, follow their beliefs, but adapt it to a new environment with a lot fewer people. And they do pretty well because they have that infrastructure in place already where they've got other people going back and forth, like the Cushman, like
Right.
Robert Cushman. I can't remember his first
Robert
name.
Cushman, yeah.
He's going back and they still have those
Reverend Robert
connections.
Cushman, yeah.
They have the people who...
He was like their religious center. The irony is that there were separatists, but they're like my grandfather, Isaac Allerton, like he didn't do it for the religious part.
No, didn't he end up even moving out of the settlement?
Yeah, I mean he because just to let people know, it gets too religious. Going,
well, it's
following
and that falls
Thanksgiving,
apart.
it gets too religious, it falls
Yeah.
apart, and then so because he's the first one to trade in New York on Wall Street and creates Wall Street to trade to send the money back for the bill to keep them going, they're like, you're greedy.
So they bring all the same problems with them.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
But,
so
I
he
mean-
left anyway, and just like whatever, have fun
Yeah.
with your guys' craziness. But that's like 8 years down the road.
But I mean, the thing with this is that we're not talking about a group of people. Actually, we are talking about a group of people that had a problem with the fact that James was bringing back sports and singing and dancing on Sundays.
Yeah, this is the beginning of evangelicalism.
Well, it's not to the footloose level yet. Like they're not, but it was just Sundays. Like you can't do these things on Sundays.
Well, like
And that
there was when Plymouth becomes big in the years, like 8 years after, evangelicalism is bred there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird because I'm thinking about that December. Half of the 50 that are there die that December. Half of them. Then the first contact with the Native Americans come and they shoot arrows at them. They find all these like graves of the pilgrims, and then they have at least a couple guns and they fire back, and it's like, I don't know what the fuck that is. What's going on? Then there's like no contact. But the Indians were already familiar with all the English at that point. And so they'd intermittently visited the area for fishing and trade before the Mayflower ride in Cape Cod area. Relations were poor following a visit years later by Thomas Hunt. And so Thomas Hunt would have come from Jamestown up there, and he had kidnapped 20 people. And that's where Squanto and his men were, right? So they had the Indians had some bad stuff with the fucking original Jamestown people, not with the Pilgrims, right? The Pilgrims are there like, I don't know, it would be like watching just like take some boring church down the street and throw them in like fucking Gaza. You know? I don't know. But they actually, they had to, it's kind of weird because you're down to like 27 people in 1621. And then they have to send some people back on the Mayflower, which makes it back no problem in April. But it's like the cook, a bunch of 12 guys, like it's like a lot of people that leave. But then but they know the fortune's coming.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very like, okay, here's our little town. Like, this is the beach, and we're going to plot our shit right here.
Yeah, look at what a perfect area they accidentally landed in, though. I mean,
yeah, so like
it's amazing.
That's where the
It's
Mayflower
amazing.
was.
That once you go back from
right.
that rocky area, it was a really good place to be.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, right? Like,
Once
but
they
I mean,
figured out how to
it's
grow
cold,
things too.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so years prior, 3 years earlier, there was a plague that killed all the residents called Indian fever involving hemorrhaging, and it is assumed to have been fulminating smallpox outbreaks that have been severe enough that colonists discovered unburied skeletons in dwellings.
Yeah.
So,
and they have actually, historians now do say it wasn't smallpox because the Pilgrims knew what smallpox was, and if it had been smallpox, they would have identified it as smallpox. But they know that since there was this bleeding and it was also connected to the liver, that they think it was something connected to a strain of the plague. I mean, I wish I was a medical historian and knew all that, but they do know more about what that was.
Yeah, so they don't really start construction till January 19th our time. So really like the last degree of Capricorn, like we gotta build shit.
Wait, when do they start?
January 19th is when they begin building. The first common house was nearly completed.
And they were
20
on the
feet
boat for all that
square.
time, or what?
Yeah, they were on the boat, the shore. And that's why a bunch of people died. Right? And then at this point, each single man was ordered to join himself to one of the 19 families in order to eliminate the need to build any more houses than absolutely necessary. Each extended family was assigned a plot 1/2 rod wide and 3 rods long for each family member. Then each family built its own dwelling. They were like, you got to build this shit yourself. And if there was like women and children left because the husband died or something, if there was a man, you're in this family now.
Yeah.
Right. And when the first house was finished, it became a hospital for the ill pilgrims. So it's like,
Wow.
there's kind of
31
not a
that
break
company.
for a while.
Yeah. No, you're working hard because that shows that God favors you. You're one of the saved. You're still alive and you're working hard.
Yeah. So between the landing and March, only 47 colonists had survived the diseases that they contracted on the ship. During the worst of the sickness, only 6 or 7 of the group were able to feed and
Of
care
course,
for the
6 or
rest.
7.
In this time, half the Mayflower crew also died.
Wow.
So William Bradford became the governor in 1621 upon the death of John Carver. And on March 22nd, the Pilgrims of Plymouth Colony signed a peace treaty with the Massasoit tribe of the Wampanoags. Bradford surrendered the patent of Plymouth Colony to the freemen in 1640, minus a small reserve. But it's interesting because like that story is really like where that history gets right weird. So if we look that up in that date, it's kind of interesting. March 22nd, beginning of Aries. This is where I have that true history stuff going on, but we'll use this version. Background: both the Wampanoag and the Pilgrims have been struggling prior to the treaty signing. Of the 102 passengers of the Mayflower, only 52 would survive past the first winter. Though the Pilgrims had intended to found a permanent settlement, they were all still living aboard the Mayflower in temporary dwellings. And at the same time, the Native Americans, the Wampanoag people, they had lost 90% of their local population because of all that. And they were wary of them because of Englishmen under John Smith, Lieutenant John Hunt. So that's why they were a little weird at first, but they realized they weren't part of them that made them get to that deal. It's so crazy because they don't tell you how that meeting got to that place. I want to give the history because it's crazy story. Like, right? Here we are. So this is an interesting real thing that when they arrived in November, Massasoit, I don't want to get any of these Native American names wrong, but would later tell the then Governor William Bradford that he had instructed his shaman to summon the spirits to drive the new arrivals away, but when this did not happen, decided to try to make peace with them. So there's a spiritual part of like, I guess they're supposed to be here. right? And he was interested in peace because of his diminished status in the region, and owing to the loss of a significant number of his people through disease and the rise of another tribe to whom he had to pay tribute. He hoped that the alliance to regain his former power and prestige. The Pilgrims, for their part, hoped to establish peace to prevent any hostilities, engage in profitable trade in order not to make a living from themselves, but pay back the investors who had financed their voyage. The treaty was accomplished on both ends, contrary to modern day claims suggesting the Native Americans were taken advantage of by it, was mutually beneficial. It is the only treaty between immigrants and Native Americans from colonial America, and arguably in history of the later United States, which remained unbroken throughout the lives of the signatories. Thank you. That's where I don't know why historians don't speak. It's like you're shamed if you speak out about the real history now about it.
No, well, they'll connect the fact that another rebellion broke out around the same time, I think. Was it Powhatan's rebellion? And that soldiers came in to help fight that, or that, people were drawn into that. But at that point, I mean, I don't know if it's not like focused on the direct people who came on the Mayflower. It's involving other people who were there in the region.
Plus, it might not have been that Native American tribe because they were having to pay tribute to another tribe because so many people died under his watch when he was the chief, right?
I was trying to find out what was James the First up to, and he was just recovering from bouts of illness and was not involved in any major event in March 1622. And he died just a few years later anyway.
Yeah, so they send Squanto down to try and make contact with them. And he spoke with the English, which he learned from European ships in the native region. And he claims in the New English Canon that the Massoit offered Samsut his freedom in exchange for acting as an envoy, and Samsut accepted. If the English proved friendly and open to a treaty, Samsut would report back and they would proceed. If the English acted as some had earlier and kidnapped or killed him, that they would know their intentions without having to lose any of his own people. So he just walked down there so people think it's like the opposite. Like, we force these people to make a treaty. They're walking down like, hey, can you guys want to make a treaty? This is my favorite part of the history because this is where I can't handle it. It was said on TV for the last 20 years. People just, and I'm not even talking about Thanksgiving. I'm talking about the arrival. They never mention it. And actually, because I'm part of Mayflower Society, they just hit it so hard all the time. They cannot believe, and they show all the articles lying. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And they have all the documents and everything. So it's that's where it's like, okay, then he walks into the settlement on the 16th of March, welcome the colonists in English, and then entertain them for the rest of the day. Spending the night in the house of Stephen Hopkins, he explained to them why the natives were wary of them, told them of the kidnapping of many by Captain Hunt and any of the diseases which had ravaged the population, and informed them on the area and the relationships of the people who lived there. He left the next day, but kept returning throughout the week, and during that time must have sent word to Massasoit and that a treaty looked promising. And then the treaty is signed with them. It was the 22nd of March, and it was a very warm day. About noon, we met again in our public business, but we had scarce been an hour together. But Samsut came again, and Squanto, the only native of that Pac 2X tribe where we now inhabit, who was one of the 20 captives that were by Hunt, who were carried away. And then Massasoit was hard by with some other Quina, his brother, and all their men. they cannot well express in English what they would. But after an hour, the king came to the top of the hill over against us and had in his train 60 men that that we could well behold them and they us. We were not willing to send our governor to them, and they unwillingly came to us. So Squanto went again on to him, who brought word that we should send one to parley with him, which we did, which was Edward Winslow, to know his mind and to signify the mind. So like they're like super untrusty. We also sent likewise a knife and a jewel to hang in the ear, and a pot of strong water, a good quantity of biscuits and butter, which were all willingly accepted. Our messenger made a speech to him that King James saluted him with words of love and peace and did not accept him as a friend or ally. And the governor desired to see him and to truck with him and to confirm a peace with him as his next neighbor. He liked well the speech and heard it attentively, though the interpreters did not express well. So it's kind of like bare minimum communication, which is really interesting to me, that it's just kind of like, yeah, well, I kind of get the basics of it. You guys are cool. You guys are cool. All right, let's go. The governor called for some strong water and drunk to him, and he drank a great draught that made him sweat all while over. He, Carver, called for a little fresh meat, which the king did eat willingly and did give his followers. And they treated a peace, which was that neither he nor any of his should injure or do hurt to any of the people. And if any of this did hurt any of ours, he shall send the offender that we might punish him. That if any of our tools were taken away when our people were at work, he would cause them to be restored. And if ours did any harm to any of his, that we would do that. If any did unjustly war against him, we would aid him. If any did war against us. So look at that is like NATO. He should send to his neighbor confederates to certify them on this, that they might not wrong us, but might be likewise compromising the conditions of peace, that when their men came to us, they should leave their bows and arrows behind them, as we should do our pieces when we came to them. So I like, it's like very decorum based, like, hey, lastly, that doing this, King James would esteem of him as his friend and ally. So they're also saying that we're going to make sure King James is cool with this deal too.
Right.
So here's where Isaac Allerton, the next morning, diverse of their people came over, hoping to get some victuals, as we imagined. Some of them told us the king would have some of us come up. Captain Standish and Isaac Allerton went venturously, who were welcomed of him after the matter. He gave them 3 or 4 ground nuts and some tobacco. We cannot yet conceive, but he is willing to have peace with us. So my grandfather went up there and he smoked tobacco and got tobacco. I guarantee you, he was like, you guys have that smoke? Fucking fuck
Can
yeah.
I get some more so I can bring it back and sell it?
He was known as like the big tobacco smoker. So it's kind of weird that, and he was the trader.
He's the one depicted smoking the pipe in that.
Correct.
Right?
And he's the trader. So he knows how to, like, whoever I'm dealing with, let's fucking make trade. Because he's the one who got the boats and everything, and the loans, all of it.
Do you know his birthday? Have you ever looked at that?
Oh yeah, I forgot. Capricorn or something. Or...
I was just wondering about the astrology of all these people who made it over and they were adaptable enough to be able to.
Oh yeah, they don't like have his exact birthday. I might actually have it in my thing.
Yeah, I mean, when people are this well known, even at the time, you would know their baptism date, so you'd know generally.
That's the thing about Allertons. They were a little more free. They didn't really follow everybody's thing. I
wonder how he ended up with this group in the first place then.
Oh, because he was a trader, and his wife, I think, was a Puritan, right? Oh yeah, September 1586. So I have the more. They don't have the date, but
So what do you think? What
So
are the
I think
outer
he's
planets at that point?
definitely, I mean, if you think about trade and like wanting to sit back and smoke a pipe, he's a Libra. I think he's born at the end of September. He could be a Virgo though. You know, it's kind of with a lot of Libra.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have like a lot. I have like all of the things here.
But what is what's happening in 1586 with his generation? Why are they willing to go out and be adventurers? What would he be born with?
1586.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was born in Suffolk, so Isaac, along many of his first combers, migrated from England to Leyden. So he's one of the first ones that went like, we're going to fucking England or to Holland. So he's like he's like with the first group that actually the 3-4 years prior and even like a decade prior, these ideas in 1609 stuff, like, you're like, yeah, let's go.
And Mary Norris, who was she?
That was his first wife.
But I mean, what was her background? So you're not related to her, right? Or
I am.
Are you related to her?
I am,
first
because
wife?
Mary Allerton is her mom.
Okay. So she
came from Berkshire. She was born in 1590. She was the wife and the fifth signer of the Mayflower Compact, or Isaac was. She traveled to the colonies with her husband and 3 children. Their names are so crazy: Bartholomew, Remember, and Mary Allerton.
I love
Cushman,
Remember.
who became the wife of Elder Thomas Cushman. Right. So Mary's the first and last person to die from the Mayflower. Or the youngest, and then the last one to die too.
Mm.
She actually lived a long life. She was the first person to give birth in the Plymouth colonies, stillborn, born upon the Mayflower as it was docked in the harbor. It is said that in the painting entitled "Landing of the Pilgrims," represented as having a fine face, rather beautiful, and being of the meek and quiet spirit. Coal Hill moment, scene of the secret night burials of those who died during the settlement first bitter winter. Corn was planted over their unmarked graves so that the Native Americans should not know how they had perished. Mary Norris Allerton is the second inscription on the monument because she died after the stillbirth and all that. So she comes from, well, I can look right here. Where does she come? Oh, I have to do it right here. Because he's kind of maybe following his wife.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was thinking he was probably the cool husband that they're like, yeah, bring your husband along, you know?
Yeah.
Like she may have been the one who was in with the group.
To the Elizabeth Webb and the Norris family. That's where I get lost, but like, you know, it's like, oh, like the Norris English family. The Norman conquest and means northerner or nurse. The name likely originated from the Normans. Yeah, so. Lancashire, Norris family is established in Lancashire, and held titles such as Henry Norris, who was born around 1525. And then the migration to America, right? Which is her. That's first Baron, a figure prominent in the court of Henry VIII, Henry Norris. See what I'm talking about? Like it's like.
So Isaac.
So she would have, if her line is the first Baron, like, and a prominent figure in the court of Henry VIII, and then James is going ape shit now.
Right.
And very more Catholic in a way, like almost like.
Definitely more absolutist leaning.
Yeah,
right?
then you would have known, because only 90 years prior, right? Like you would have known your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your grandfather was like part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus it was the end of the Tudor line. So it was like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
we're not gonna be part of this. It's like Biden. Like James is like Biden. Everybody's like, get me the fuck out of here. But that's crazy. So I think, like that whole story of them, it's a 50-year treaty and nobody broke it. So
Yep.
So let's just get to, I guess, Thanksgiving now and where that origin is and the date and what it is, because Thanksgiving United States, right? I think it's Plymouth Colony we have to use, and we have to use that. The landing, the first winter, the early relations with the Native Americans, the growth of Plymouth, military history, King Philip's War, final years, life, religion, marriage and family life, child, organization.
All this is
seal.
just under Thanksgiving?
No, this is under the Plymouth Colony.
Oh, okay.
Because it's going to be known for the Thanksgiving, the legacy, right? So Thanksgiving, here we go. It's crazy that they connect it to, right? So it's recorded in the book of Plymouth Plantation by William Bradford, one of the Mayflower Pilgrims, right? So it's the journal that was written over a period of years by William Bradford. It is regarded as the most authoritative account of the Pilgrims. The journal was written between 1630 and 1651, describes the story of the Pilgrims from 1608 when they settled in the Dutch Republic. And so it goes into all of it. And then, of course, it goes into the first Thanksgiving. So I'm sure we'll find that from the journal, describing their safe arrival, describes the initiation of the conflict, describes here. I know the story. Here we go. Oh, listen to this. So Robert Cushman, who was on the Speedwell, right, had to take it back, right? Then came back on the Fortune with his son. They arrive. Cushman, who had been sick, he thought he would not survive the journey, stayed in England. 1 year later, having recovered, he and his son arrived on the Fortune. He brought news from England that those who had financed their endeavor were unhappy. The Mayflower had returned to England empty, and as yet they had received no return on the investment. Cushman brought with him some amended articles from their original contract, but the Pilgrims had refused to sign before leaving England. He was able to convince them to sign it and also fill the Fortune with wood and furs. He stayed only a few weeks, but left his son Thomas in the care of the ruling elder Brewster. And of course, then he married Mary Allerton. Oddly enough, there were no ministers among the Mayflower Pilgrim senators. Robert Cushman, who was a deacon, was the closest thing. And so that's the thing. This is like a short one. He is the reverend who did the Thanksgiving prayer, the ideas, and his sermon is what creates the reason for it.
The reason for Thanksgiving?
Correct. Like giving the meaning behind it. Man, they just love missing these very specific details. They just want to talk about it being an American thing. My God. Here, a Thanksgiving prayer. Robert Cushman, one of the Mayflower's passengers, said, "If we ever establish a colony, God works a miracle. Okay, when the Mayflower landed there, and then he brought,
Well, there's a big quote from it, right? When, wait, no, William Bradford wrote them. What do I found something here, but I don't know. No.
Here, okay. There is a pilgrim few people know about, Robert Cushman. He was one of the business agents for the Pilgrims and played a key role in the Pilgrim story. He preached the first sermon ever printed in America. Man, these people just don't fucking write shit. Here we go. America's first Thanksgiving and its oldest sermon. Thank God somebody is smart. Robert Cushman's sermon on self-love, preached in Plymouth in 1621, is the oldest one published in North America. The library owns an 18th century edition. The themes of Cushman's sermon, preached to a community enduring privation and struggle, still speak to us in 2017. We are grateful for Francis Bremer, noted Puritan scholar and board member of the CLA, for contributing this post. So Thanksgiving is a time when we reflect on the Pilgrims and our broader Puritan movement, of which they are part, in the legacy which they bestowed on our culture. While there is much in their story that we rightly deplore, there are also, she must be liberal. There are aspects and we must learn from it, blah, blah, blah. Christian charity sermon. At the heart of the message was the notion that no man is an island, but a part of a community, each of whose members is equally important to the success of the whole. As Winthrop put it, all the parts of the body being thus united are made so contagious in a special relation to one as they must needs partake of each other's strength and infirmity, joy and sorrow, weal and woe. Thus he exhorted his fellow colonialists. They were to delight in each other, make others' conditions our own, rejoice together, mourn together, labor and suffer together. Drawn from Scripture, this was a statement of a social gospel which was common to Puritans in England and which became an important strain in American history. Which is less familiar is that a very similar call was preached by Robert Cushman in the infant colony in December of 1621. A sermon preached at Plymouth in New England, December 9th, 1621. So what's so funny is we celebrate it in November, but it's December.
Well, would it be?
But it's 10 days, the calendar.
Yeah.
So it's technically the very last day of November in that calendar system. But that's what gets really weird. In an assembly of His Majesty's faithful subjects, there's inhibiting and show danger, love. Okay. Well, most of the pilgrims, so here it is right here. Yeah. This is it right here. It's called The Sin and Danger of Self-Love, preached at Plymouth in New England, 1621, Robert Cushman.
I thought you had a copy of that somewhere.
I do. Yeah, I do. But I'm just, I could find it.
Well, we need to dig it out now.
But while most of the pilgrims who had settled in Leyden originated in Lincolnshire, Cushman came from Canterbury, Kent, where his religious zeal had brought him to the attention of the church authorities. He left England and joined John Robertson's separatist congregation in Leyden in 1609. Though lay prophesying was to be found many Puritan groups, Robertson was particularly welcoming to the practice whereby laymen deemed. So they were into prophesying. And to the empowered, the Spirit could speak out and even preach in religious services. So this is what forms the Quaker movement. So my family went to the Quaker side, ironically, too. Not the evangelical crazies. But that the Spirit could speak out and preach in religious services. Cushman likely preached to the church on more than one occasion before his Plymouth sermon. So let's get to the fucking Thanksgiving. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me show you. Oh my God. Really?
What's the name of the, I always try to find things and then you can't find the actual publication. But
Robert Cushman just put like it's like the sin of self-love. I can't believe these fucking people. Ugh.
Isn't that it? That teaching American history?
Yeah,
That's not
and
the,
I'm using University. I'm using University of Michigan because that's where my grandma, who is direct descendant, as well went, and my grandparents met out there.
That's funny because what's interesting about the University of Michigan is that they have this huge database that they're the ones that organized the project, and it's called the English Short Title Catalog. That's what I was about ready to try to look up, see if I could find it.
So part of it goes into the occasion of these. Maybe there's going to be a better version because I don't want to read there's got to be
that Project Gutenberg. It's not there. Usually you can page through the book.
Oh man, read now.
If you click on read now, it didn't do anything?
Timed out. Plain text.
Oh, fun. Well, there you go. You have to always get through the introduction.
So he arrived November of 1621, but took passage in the same ship back again, pursuant to the direction of the merchant adventurer, and then, okay, after the death.
Here it is, right? Or no?
We'll see. You know what
everybody
you do?
Has to write there.
This is such Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
Here it begins with things.
I've been having the worst Mercury retrograde with my phone dying.
Not found.
Huh. If you put the name of the sermon with PDF, what happens?
Dinner. Not found.
What's the name of this?
December.
Robert Cushman, self-love.
Here, I found here's some matches. I'm finding the dates.
Internet Archive seems to have it. Yeah, I found a book of it.
I found it.
Okay. There. And this one, it starts on.
You
got it?
I seem to just be fucking.
It's just
Jesus.
Okay, here it is. And
this is like the history most people don't know. Like that. Where's the idea of Thanksgiving come from? Because Robert Cushman, you have to remember that the governor's journal, he doesn't start until 1630. So it's like he's at the end of his life. Let me reflect back.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that remember.
This was actually published in 1622.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So and then there was no spiritual leader at all. It was Robert Cushman. So, and he was a reverend, and he was part of the original movement that left in 1609 to Holland. And he was into prophecies and that the spirit could speak through your soul, spark.
It's so interesting because the way these sermons are always structured is that, and sermons are still like that by a lot of preachers, is you take one little phrase, like he just takes 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 24, let no man seek his own, but every man another's wealth. And then he's just going to preach on what those words mean. So in the process of doing that, then you're inspired by the Holy Spirit or whatever it is to make your observations. So what,
it's the next page.
Okay.
Yeah, he's talking about Corinthians. Boring. Is God then direct his apostle? Well, there he talks about King David.
So he's giving all the examples of why it's better to care more about the community, right? Or why it's bad just to care for yourself.
Right.
It's funny because I always say that they write and they present evidence in such a scientific way, but all the evidence is coming from how they're reading the Bible, right? So the second way by which men
by the
seek
way,
their
he did this
own-
in front of the tribe that didn't speak English.
Well, they must have really loved that. No wonder they were sitting on the ground.
Like, they
during
probably
that
were
part.
like, who the fuck is this guy? He just came on a boat like a month ago and he's leaving in a couple days and he just has all this to say right now.
Oh, well, interesting. Like, let's go back to the next one. What is he talking about? What's a belly god? The third way is when men seek. So the third way in which they seek, when men seek only themselves,
Right.
is when they seek their own bellies, as some did in the apostles' times, which went about with new doctrines and devices, knowing that the people had itching ears and would easily entertain and willingly feed such novelties. They were shadows in God's service, but when feasting came, they were substances. Then they were in their element. And certainly there are some men which shape even their religion, human state, and all, even as the belly cheer is best, and that they must have, else all heart and life is gone. So yeah,
It's
they're
so
looking for
weird
their
because
food.
people fill up their whole bellies for themselves on Thanksgiving.
I know. As seen in Nehemiah, who would not take his large portion allotted to the governor because he knew it went short with others of his brethren? And Uriah would not receive the king's present and go banquet with his wife because he knew the whole host, his brethren, were fain to snap short in their fields. So the difference between a temperate good man and a belly god is
This
this.
is why the president does picks the turkey that's not going to be killed.
He pardons
The turkey.
because a good man will not eat
never
his
have
morsels
seen
alone.
a president eating a big Thanksgiving feast either.
He doesn't want to be a belly god.
No, because if you know the real secret of Thanksgiving, it's this.
What? That?
This is the only thing really that was recorded.
Yeah. Yep.
The sermon and what was said. Everybody just makes assumptions and it's created like a Santa Claus moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so this is so interesting how it is commemorating a feast. Like they're all gathered there. They're finally going to have their feast. And he's probably thinking of the people who can't wait to eat. Are you being governed by your belly god? But it's interesting. It says, a good man will not eat his morsels alone, especially if he have better than others. But if by God's providence he have gotten some meat which is better than ordinary and better than his other brethren, he can have no rest in himself except he make others partake with him. But a belly god will slop all his own throat. Yea, though his neighbor come in and behold him eat. Yet his
So that's the idea. Everybody eats from the same turkey. Right?
Yeah, you don't just gripple gut
right?
yourself.
And that everybody does it together. Nobody's
Yeah.
just going to go eat right now on their own. You do it all together.
So you don't eat on your own. You do it together. You don't.
This is my other grandfather, my 10th great grandfather. Direct.
He must have not been. I'm trying to think what human design type it is that you're not where they eat alone. There's some people who are supposed to eat alone.
He could have been indirect like me, light. Yeah.
But he was.
But
I
can't eat outside or in the light. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then he goes on to say, don't seek your own glory and fame. And then he says, man, how long do these people have to wait before they finally got their dinner?
Well, they hadn't had any sermon for the year of building.
Wow. If God see this disease of self-love so dangerous in us, then it standeth us all in hand to suspect ourselves, and so to seek out the root of this disease that it may be cured.
If a learned physician shall see by our
Countenance and
eye, I'm
eye.
getting old.
Yeah, our countenance and eye, that we have some dangerous disease growing on us, our hearts will smite us, and we will bethink ourselves where the most grief lieth, and how it should come, whether with cold, heat, surfeit, overflowing of blood. So it's basically talking about a learned doctor would diagnose your
Right.
bodily symptoms, and you would find out how to get rid of it, and will prevent always that which. So you're just worried about that, but you're not looking at what actually feeds the disease, and cherish all courses that would destroy it.
Yeah, let's skip there and see if he gets kind of like, I think at the end he gets more Mayflower people, but Plymouthy.
Thirdly,
Yeah, so see how that, like, there's no more sermon, like, as far as like he's naming every fucking Bible fucking thing. The last like couple pages there are like much more.
Well, this seems like to be where he's summing it up, right?
Right.
Lay away all thought of former things and forget them, and think upon the things that are. Look not gapingly upon one another, pleading your goodness, your birth, your life you lived, your means you had and might have had. Here you are by God's providence under difficulties. Be thankful to God, it is no worse, and take it in good part that which is, and lift not up yourself because of former privileges. When Job was brought to the dunghill, he sat down upon it. And when the Almighty had been bitter to Naomi, she would be called Mara. Consider, therefore, that what you are now and who you are. Say not, I could have lived thus and thus, but say, this is such great advice, I think. Like, don't sit and worry about, what could be. Be in the moment, right? Think and be grateful what you have. Say, okay, so don't say, I could have lived thus and thus, but say thus and thus, I must live. For God and natural necessity requireth, if your difficulties be great, you had need to cleave the faster together, and comfort and cheer up one another, laboring to make each other's burdens lighter. There is no grief so tedious as a churlish companion, and nothing makes makes sorrows easy more than cheerful associates. Bear ye therefore one another's burden, and be not a burden to one another. Avoid all factions, forwardness, singularity, and withdrawings, and cleave fast to the Lord and one another continually. So shall you be a notable precedent to these poor heathens. Who did they like being called heathens? Whose eyes are upon you, and who very brutishly and cruelly do daily eat and consume one another through their emulations, ways, and contentions. Be you therefore ashamed of it, and win them to peace, both with yourselves and one another, by your peaceable examples, which will preach louder to them than if you should cry in their barbarous language. So shall you be an encouragement to many of your children, friends in your native country, to come to you when they hear of your peace, love, and kindness that is amongst you. But above all, it shall go well with your souls, when that God of peace and unity shall come to visit you with death, as he hath done many of your associates, you being found of him not in murmurings, discontent, and jars, but in brotherly love and peace, may be translated from this wandering wilderness into that joyful and heavenly Canaan. So yeah, ending with that whole image of why they came to this new place in the first place,
Right.
I think it's interesting up here where he starts to characterize the brutish people. It's interesting that he's taking kind of the knowledge that he already had on the people that he probably would have got from books in Europe.
Right.
I wonder how much they knew about the way they lived at that point.
Right. Here, this is an interesting look at it, is that Well, the best known primary sources of the first Thanksgiving came from Mort's Relation, authored by Edward Winslow and William Bradford. Christmas sermon is described in later tradition as the first communal religious observance tied to the fledgling community's survival and a spiritual rallying and moment of unity, not unlike the communal gratitude that Thanksgiving later symbolized. But some historians and tradition hence refer to Cushman's sermon as the first Thanksgiving sermon, not because it was a harvest meal celebration, but because the sermon embodied the values. Yeah, it tried to tell me that he didn't preach the sermon. That was documented there.
What?
And
what is that saying?
That ChatGPT tried to tell me like, oh yeah, no, he wasn't there for Thanksgiving. I'm like, are you a fucking retard? And then, you're right. That's what I'm saying is like, they are hiding this history crazy.
It is interesting this is why it's important to know history when you're working with ChatGPT, because you can say all the time,
I literally
are you sure?
I
because
said, he did the sermon there. You have your history wrong. Look at this right here. And then like, you have your history wrong. Good catch. You're right. He did preach in his sermon, and you are correct. More precise account on his role and how it connects to Thanksgiving. Like, I'm like, and he's the one who fucking then was the first, like, days after on the ship, and then talked about it in England, which spread it around. So to me, so the date, December 9th, right? This is the first Thanksgiving. Yeah. That's what we have to look at as like the astrology chart, because it's like, is that a moment where finally everything planetary has gone, we've set the course, we've set the meal and eat and move into this new thing. So, oh gosh, edit chart. December 9th. Oh, that's name.
Thanksgiving sermon.
Hold on, this freaking piece of shit. Oh my God, I can't right now. Like my life, like December 9th, 1621. And then I got to change the place to Plymouth because I'm in the United Kingdom right now. Massachusetts. Plymouth. There we go. Let me show people here. So there's a lot of planets retrograde, like Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, Uranus. Venus in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn, Mars in Aquarius. South node in Taurus, north node Scorpio. But that's Uranus like fully in. That's Saturn halfway done with its transit in Cancer. That's Jupiter in Gemini and it's retrograded. And it's also the Sun-Jupiter opposition beginning.
Wow.
Which it's very kind of Jupiter-ish, right? But that's what's kind of the hit. There's like a secret, and the hidden secret, it's so funny, even talks about the belly and all that, and like everybody fills themselves up and does the opposite of what was preached there. That it's like a cult ritual that the dark does to make people think it's about that when it wasn't. That's why you never have seen a president eat a crazy Thanksgiving dinner. They always do the pardon 2 days before and then they go missing.
Yeah, why don't they ever show them eating dinner?
Because they're all connected to the Mayflower Compact. My family never was like, eat all in my Palmer side. It was like, you just eat. It wasn't talked about either. It was just like.
Well, it's always you share this turkey.
Right.
That usually is never enough for a lot of people. There's always, I mean, in my family, I don't know.
It was very proper how I grew up. So
yeah,
it was not like, just, watch football and fucking eat all of it. It wasn't like that.
Because a turkey, as a bird, like if you're not getting some genetically modified turkey, doesn't have a ton of meat on it.
No.
I mean, people do have a lot of leftovers sometimes, but it's kind of, I just remember dinners where you just had, everybody had a little bit on their plate of every little thing. And it's more about everybody coming together for the meal. It's like what that sermon said.
Yeah, it was a moon in Scorpio. It was a balsamic moon beginning. I mean, it was really like not festive.
Now, can you tell?
Put it that way.
When
Like, this chart is like spiritually wounded, Chiron in Pisces, Mars in Aquarius. People are just kind of like, are we really doing this? I guess I'm showing up. Right? The sun in sextile to Mars. Pluto had the Jupiter conjunction. And so there's like heavy reminders of like the deaths and everybody. Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. It's like flat with Mercury and Venus in Capricorn. Uranus now in Leo retrograde, like in Mercury quincunx that. There's no like big major aspects except the building up of the opposition to the sun to Jupiter, but that's like the approaching opposition.
But I'm sorry.
No.
How odd to go from North Node in Sagittarius, right?
To Scorpio.
And then all of a sudden you're just like, we started with all these great beliefs and now it's death.
It's Mars
or
on its way to square the nodes. It's
would there
also,
been an eclipse right
it's also
too?
though with the North Node there in Scorpio that there would have just been some eclipses.
Yeah, especially with the moon and sun so close.
Yeah, watch this. Let's look at eclipses for 16, 20. Like actually, I'm going to do 16, 19, and then to 16, just 22. Search. So there was a total solar solar eclipse in Scorpio on the 13th of November. Then there was a lunar partial November 29th. That's around, it's hard to know which date they're using, if they're using Julian or,
yeah,
I think they're using
they don't always
Julian, but
yeah, but wow.
But then that would go 10 days back. So it's very difficult to, I think that's what it is. It's like the Julian was November 30th or 29th, and like the newer calendar is December 9th, and it's being translated that way, but it really is. So there would have been, if you're using Gregorian, then really there was an eclipse a week, 10 days prior.
And would it have opposed Pluto? Which of course they wouldn't have known.
No, it was a lunar in Gemini.
Oh, okay.
At 7 degrees. The total solar was 21 Scorpio though. And then they went into the next one with a Scorpio lunar and then a solar annual in Taurus. And, look at that, no aspects. That's what I'm saying, it was dead. All those eclipses had no aspects. Unless this is just going to the chart that I'm using. But from what I'm gathering here, like if I look at the lunar eclipse right before, well, there's some aspects. But to the eclipse itself, just the sextile to Uranus and the trine to Uranus. So there was this feeling of, all right, we've made it through whatever the fuck that was. That's really the feeling. But then there's a flat feeling too. It doesn't have a normal, Gemini pop. So we had this same lunar eclipse in 2011 in December. And it was with Uranus and Aries that was connected to it. I'm weird and I remember these things.
What was going on in 2011 for you? Why do you remember that specifically?
It was the first horoscope video I did where I recorded an eclipse.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that one. I didn't watch it then, but I saw it later. It was the lunar eclipse in Gemini, and it was the North Node that was moving from Sag into Scorpio that would eventually meet with Saturn, that North Node, Saturn conjunction of 2013.
but it was still North Node Sag. But I just, like, I just remember weird things. But yeah, like this would have been the most flat time, which makes sense for Thanksgiving. But what's weird is like this Thanksgiving is like it's like the Thanksgiving we're all celebrating this year is 1620 vibes. Like December 1620. Like a lot of people are about to die in December. Somehow.
And you,
I know people are like, what the fuck? But you could just, the way the world feels and how it's just so out there and all that, like, and how they felt that in 1620 when they arrived in December, and looking at that chart, and we have the Saturn, Neptune, and Saturn coming direct on Thanksgiving and all that shit, and it's in water and all. It's just like that's more relatable than like this one. This is kind of like, okay, we're out of it. And everybody's kind of
shell-shocked,
and also kind of like, there's not, put it this way, there would have been no excitement. If anybody was born on this time period is going to become an evangelical crazy person.
And why would you say that?
Because it's like living by this idea, Jupiter opposite with the sun in Sag, right? With Jupiter in detriment, with Uranus in Leo, retrograde, with Saturn in Cancer. It's so personal and it's so my way. And if you don't do it that way, and the belief systems being so strong and the justification of Neptune in Libra there, this would be just the worst soul on the planet.
It's so odd how spread out it is too. When we're getting ready to have all that energy in Pisces and Aries.
Right. Like we're living in times where everything's so condensed, just like in the 1530s. But like, this is like it's a hollow, but also like the emptiness to fill things up, to go fill things up. Which is kind of weird because that's kind of what Thanksgiving is and what he talks about. But like, I will disagree with my 10th great grandfather that his sermon was very misguided and almost seems like propaganda to make them all work together because he needs to go back to the bankers and make sure that they're happy.
Yeah. Well, it almost feels like that. To me, if you see everything spread out like that, you don't get a sense that any one person has a lot of power. Like there's not people who are really gifted in a particular area.
No.
So you would need to pool a lot of people together though.
You would have to, but that's the problem is that, like this is him. Like he is so like pure, right? Robert to the right.
That mummy thing is him.
Yeah.
Or that wax
He's the one who organized the voyage too, by the way.
Cushman.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
And I was like, well, I wonder when his birthday was, if anything was hitting him. I just found February of whatever. I only looked at February he was baptized February 9th of the year he was born. So that was probably about 3 days after he was born. Because it was usually about, 2 or 3 days that people brought their children in.
Yeah, he was born 1577.
I just looked it up on ChatGPT, I think, or no, somewhere. It says Robert Cushman was born in Rolvenden. Is that him? Near Tenterden in Kent. In 1578 is what this says. But it says his ancestry remains a matter of dispute despite detailed research. But we know he was baptized at the church on the 9th of February that year.
Disputed?
Is that really him? Though, wait, yeah, I mean, I typed in the Pilgrim, early Pilgrim, and this
The Church
is
of England hated
the
him.
Canterbury Historical and Archaeological Society.
The Church of England hated him.
Well, he's out there letting the Spirit move him and give these sermons that are threatening because he's not upholding the Church of England. He's a separatist, and he's giving like 50-page sermons to mixtures of native people and English people. He was threatening, in other words.
Yeah, because he here, let me do this. Okay. Disputed.
Oh wow, he had to be at the quarter sessions for non-attendance at services, so he was even getting in trouble.
So he was the reverend. He was, his father and his mother are Thomas Cushman. Okay. Thomas Cushman, Joan Cushman. Like it goes far back. So I don't even know whether there's contested. Like that's just insane to me, actually. It's fucking crazy.
It must be that people probably just decide it's 1577 or 78. It's probably something as simple as that.
Like, watch, I bet you if I go Thomas Cushman 1512, this is his grandfather.
They have his birthday.
Right? Family search. This is like the Mormon's home.
Oh yeah, Roland and Kent.
Correct. Yeah, and Joan Thomas, I have all that info. Like, these motherfuckers, I can't handle. There's something weird that they have really like. But it's because Thomas Cushman set the whole thing up. He was with they organized the whole thing 11 years prior. Then he throws the sermon out, then publishes it in 1622 in England, and lets everybody read out there like, hey, this is what we've done.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was going to see if there was like a Thomas Cushman 1512 in Henry's court too, because like that's Reformation time is 1533.
I just think it is really fascinating to me that his birthday of all the birthdays gets lost, first of all.
Right.
And that they dispute his year of birth. When you, like you are showing, everyone in his line has it perfectly recorded. But this guy who is like a spiritual father of the Pilgrims, and if his sermon was brought back and printed in England in 1622, that's what I was thinking. How do you have this separatist guy whose sermon is brought back and printed in 1622?
Right.
That's crazy. That could be seen as inflammatory, like encouraging people to leave the church. King James I is sick at that time.
Yeah.
They're worried about what's happening next. So to me, it's evidence that there's a rising hopefulness again in England, that maybe there will be room for separatists to be included again. Like they're sensing a turn of power. This guy could have been someone who led a movement, or people could have rallied behind his ideas,
Right.
which are all about needing the community, not just one guy like the king. It could be seen as such a critique of the English system and structure. So
Right.
to take that sermon and print it, when, like, this is a group of people who would have been worried also. Some people would have seen them as anarchists because they took themselves out of the structure that governs the whole state in England or in Great Britain. So to me, it's interesting. It's like you're erasing him because at this time, people also were still doing astrology. John Dee hadn't lived that much before that. We know James was against John Dee, right?
Right.
And
which there was a lot of connections to the idea of this John. I was going to go into John Dee stuff with being with the boat and the purchase, but that's a whole nother fucking thing.
What that was it timed according to?
There was
something like that.
There was some stuff that just I've like researched that I've been like, especially, I mean, he's the one who charted all the charts, the maps.
Cushman was?
No, John Dee.
Oh, John Dee did the charts for
the world. Like
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was something I saw that I'd have to go back, but I was like, I feel like John Dee's all over that. And then especially the speaking, like the spirit, like it was actually when we were looking at that part where it's like Robert was a prophecy. They were into prophecies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And so like if you're in England into prophecies, the only person you could only talk to a couple people that lived at that time that were like, you know, John Dee died though then, but like that was like a weird transfer of that energy in his book about speaking to spirits and with Edward Kelly. And then of course his apology and like the end, but then like James is in and everybody wants Elizabeth back in a weird way. If you were like that, and you would have probably read John Dee's like Speaking of Spirit, and like
Well, and listen, okay, look at this article really fast. I'm sorry, we can go to
no,
that,
you're good.
But this is Christian History Institute even, right? When the sermon reigned, and you go here, in this age, only the tiniest minority of people could read, right? So public preaching was the clearest and most direct method for Puritanism to appeal to people's hearts and minds. Preaching was considered an almost supernatural activity and an indispensable means of receiving divine grace. The preaching of the word is the scepter of Christ's kingdom, the glory of a nation, blah, blah, blah. So that is, if you are a charismatic and excellent preacher, and Robert Cushman was he ordained or was he just kind of like the self-appointed reverend?
He was like a self-appointed one for his own, like they were, it was like their own thing.
Yeah. So he's dangerous, and having his sermon printed in England is even crazier. So, but I don't know a whole lot around that and how many copies of that were printed.
Right.
But I'm thinking it could have been seen almost as a refutation of James directly in his weak state, you know?
Yeah,
there's
like
definitely more there that seems like it was taken out of the record.
My grandma had sent me this book. So this is why I was like, what? Like this is the actual historical and biographical genealogy of the Cushman, the descendants of Robert Cushman, the Puritan from 1617 to 1855. Because my family's in this book everywhere. But like, yeah, it's like everything in here, and like where this is the Cushman house in Massachusetts, built in 1785. So that's 160 years later, right? To attend to the neglected and remember the forgotten. Like these are some of the sermons, of course, of Robert Cushman, the Puritan, a complete historical record of it. And it's been a great work. I mean, this goes into the whole thing. We're not going to go through it all, but like, you know, like it's.
I mean, these sorts of sources, it's so interesting that an academic historian would use it differently and say, okay, well, this is written by a family member, and so it's probably got family legend, and we have to take it and judge it against all these other sources and be very objective about it, right? But there's so much power in the stories that families write and tell about their own families, because they will record details that a historian looking at the big picture doesn't record. So we have to, then one more thing I would say is it's interesting how much there has been a push to make people hate this part of their histories. Like if you are connected to this, now you're supposed to feel like, well, I shouldn't broadcast that. And, like it's been made since like the 1970s and 80s, this history has been told in a different way than it had since 1622 or 21, right?
Right.
That people are supposed to feel like you shouldn't broadcast it. But I think in so many areas, it's not just this history. A lot of histories that are individual family histories, they don't get told. And there's so much power in those stories. That's why I think everybody should learn their own family history. Like in the chat in High Vibe, I think it's High Vibe chat, Jan was talking about how she can trace her family back to 800, the year 800
Right.
in Norway. I don't remember. I'm sorry, Jan, but
That's the magical year that
really,
is like, if you can do it there, then you're somebody.
yeah, it's amazing for people to be able to do that means you came from a line of people who valued
That you can't trace back farther than that. There's too many records and floods and weird things.
Well, you might be able to you can if you're of a noble family, but also if
Right.
somebody
It's
along
not
the
public
line,
or not in
when
a library.
yeah, but when that knowledge was still known, if somebody would have written the legend down, right? Like,
Well, there was, this is through I'm just going to keep my mouth shut about something, but that Charlemagne destroyed with the church, because he became the idea of the head of being a king and the Pope, right? That's the moment.
yeah,
Charlemagne is the one that starts that he destroyed any lines, records. And that's why there's so much gap. Before 800, it's like, what?
But he would have done that,
But
to get
more
rid of
like,
certain lines?
because it's the beginning
or-
of the true Catholic Church, like beginning its power, the start.
the institutionalization of it, like
Yeah.
so making it an institution. So
Yeah.
you don't want to know if
So
if
I think
Jesus
that's the
had
beginning
relative-
of the
and
secret
children or something.
library and the secret vault that the Catholic Church has. I don't think he destroyed it. I was thinking, let's build the vault.
Well, if you want to consolidate power behind a state leader now, you don't want rivals also to claim it. And you don't want rivals to claim it in the name of religious connections either. Or if you want the institution to be more powerful than the individual, you don't want people to know if that individual had ancestors or descendants, is what I mean, really.
Right. Because this is that idea in Charlemagne. See, like the coronation of Charlemagne in Rome, like,
I can't believe we're back to Charlemagne. Okay, but anyway.
but it all traces to that in a weird way, because that's who they're all connected to in the line. But when James comes and does that, that's like the break away from this whole thing our families have been part of and fought for. So this is why my prediction is that the world is changing religions so big. That's what this is really setting up, like long term. Like I think the biggest thing of what we're about to go through from 26, 27 and beyond is that all these institutions, government-wise, but the religious ones are all everybody's going to do a full, there's going to be discoveries, I'm out of that. I'm not doing it. Like repulsion.
There's definitely something from the James the First story that we don't have the pieces, because so he's also the guy who was creating the Bible, right?
Right.
He's creating the ultimate document. He knows, oh, those separatists have their own Bible. I'm creating one that'll be the Bible, and we can wipe out all those Bibles, because we know he wants to consolidate power. So he doesn't want the alternative beliefs out there. He doesn't want people delivering sermons where they're interpreting it on their own.
Right.
He casts suspicion on prophesying and all of that by also writing demonology.
Right.
And that's something he'd been doing while he
Prior,
was king
yeah.
in Scotland. But think about it, in Scotland, you had so much less unity. And, you know,
Well,
like
when
he wants to get...
was on the throne, they were demonizing witches in Scotland and burning witches and shit. And she wouldn't do that in England.
Well, yeah, and she starts to institutionalize the treatment of witchcraft
Yeah.
and make it so that, you know, you actually have to have proof and whatever. But James brings us more continental knowledge of, you know, like, okay, now we can accuse people of being witches and say they're demonically possessed. And that's new for England. So now anyone who is full of the Spirit is speaking up for themselves. You just call them a witch and get rid of them. Right?
Right.
It's really so much about James consolidating his own power and trying to get rid of these competitors. And so it's amazing that they did get out, that they were able to get out, and then they became so influential somewhere else.
That's the other thing that's weird, is that Charlemagne was crowned the emperor of the Romans on Christmas 800. The way they depict it, and that he's the first one that's like, you're the head of the church too.
Yeah.
So it's weird that's where our next history in the stars has to go, is that, because the astrology of 800 is fucking weird.
Okay. Well, there's so much out there about Charlemagne. So many people's alternative histories end with Charlemagne. And so I'm really curious
He's
to dig
the
into that more.
Epstein of the 800s.
I don't know about that, but a lot of people think, did they think he's good? I haven't been able to get a handle on all of it. So I'm curious if people will, in our comments for this show, put their views about Charlemagne and give us things to investigate about him. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so much weird shit that goes with this, and how it's all connected, of this repulsion of it. That really, to me, Thanksgiving is about, the Indians, but I think it's the Thanksgiving, we got the fuck away. Those of us here survived. We have to work together. We worked together. We formed an alliance with this tribe, and we did it. We pulled it off. And we get to figure out how we want to be spiritually without somebody telling us how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people, once it starts getting really religious there, because I've followed all that history with my family, it's like 1628 through 31, it starts going evangelical. And then that's when Quaker movements like eventually come, because of William Penn in Pennsylvania. Some of them start moving up in other areas, and some of them go back to England, of course, and back and forth. And, but like the crazy evangelicals start there. And then there's kind of like a split, the Quakers, and then, it's kind of crazy actually. But like, to me, this is like where we're at now. Like, people are doing Thanksgiving in America because it's been institutionalized by Masons that are all connected to the line. Because, right, so FDR, right? So FDR Mason, right? Like the Grand Lodge of Ohio, our wonderful brother, Franklin D. Roosevelt. With the Federal Reserve. And how weird. Why do you pick the Speedwell? Oh, because that has the motherfucker who started it all. The Robert Cushman. That's what it gets. If Thanksgiving's not a place you want to go dig.
Well, that's why it needs to be stopped.
And no, I think what it is like the idea of like where people are like, oh yeah, like it's an occult magic trick to get people to become the swine.
What is
Thanksgiving? That it's been sold to them the incorrect story. And even then they lie and say it's really white people that just don't care about Indians. So it's like it keeps shifting, but people still just keep going. It reminds me of just like these pigs at a table, and like this like occult like sucking up of like these people have no idea what happened. They have no idea why they left, or that it was about religious freedom, or it's not even preached about any of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving totally differently now. That whole show is a tragedy. Charlie Brown is a loser because he can't even do Thanksgiving dinner right? Like he has his dog giving people jelly beans and toast and popcorn, and he's a loser because of it.
Hold on.
That whole thing's all about getting to grandma's house for turkey because you have to have the right food.
I'm going to ask my Grok
Okay.
beta.
When you put I
4.1.
need and it came up with toilet, that's interesting.
That no, Grok's kind of changed. They've got this whole new thing, but I need you to see if there is connections to FDR when he changed the Thanksgiving holiday and ties with his Freemason lodge or brotherhood and getting it passed in America, whatever you can find. Because there's something, I bet you it right now, just to like, just do this to kind of end. This will be a grateful thing. You'll always remember, people. You'll always remember that the Leo King went, This is where.
And that Anne said, it's not about jelly beans and popcorn and toast with Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving. No.
Right.
They won't remember that. Investigating FDR's Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And I've got my Grok hooked up fucking unplugged. Like, look and see, I've got Omni Grok. It wasn't even that hard. It was only a 5 task. I know he didn't invent Thanksgiving. That nod goes to George Washington, the Freemason. See, I knew this is where it all, right? And Abraham Lincoln in 1863.
Was he a Freemason? I don't think so.
Yes, he was.
Abraham Lincoln was? Oh.
I'm pretty sure he was.
1939.
And he was not religious fully. Remember, he never committed to a religion.
Yeah, and in George Washington's first letter about Thanksgiving, it's all about sort of the divine creator, but not specifically, about the Christian
He did
God.
apply to one in 1860.
They rejected Abraham Lincoln? Or maybe he just decided to go debate Stephen Douglas
Abraham
instead.
Lincoln, Grand Lodge of British Columbia. He issued, Abraham was not a Mason, but he applied for membership at the Grand Lodge in Springfield, Illinois, shortly after his nomination for the presidency. Why would you do that?
Because somebody told you better be a Freemason.
And the whole Civil War was based off the Freemasons on both sides funding it and creating the whole mess, right? So they were probably like, no, you're going to become president, but we're not going to show you we're recorded. We can't connect you to this. Guaranteed. Look at this. Because he felt that his applying for membership at the time might be constructed as a political ruse to obtain votes. He advised the lodge that he would resubmit his application again when he returned from the presidency, although he doesn't. Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater in Washington by John Wilkes on the death of the president.
I didn't realize that was Good Friday.
Right? Tyrion Lodge adopted on April 17, 1865, a resolution to say that the decision of President Lincoln to postpone his application for the honors of Freemasonry, lest his motives be misconstrued, is the highest degree honorable to his memory. It gets weirder.
Okay.
I already got it. When you
Okay.
just know. But in 1939, amid the Great Depression's economic hangover, FDR issued the executive proclamation, shifting the date from the last Thursday in November to the second to last, November 23rd that year. Goal, squeeze in an extra week of Christmas shopping to juice retail sales. That just doesn't match to me. It just doesn't match. Lobbied hard by department store execs like Fred Lazarius Jr. of the Federated Department Stores, FDR, or FD stores, that's going to be. The sparkled Frank's Giving chaos, state split. 23 followed FDR, 22 stuck traditional, 3 did both. Poll shows 62% public backlash, and even college football schedules imploded. By 1941, Congress, via joint resolution, locked it to the fourth Thursday permanently. FDR signed it into law on December 26, 1941, post Pearl Harbor.
So it took Pearl Harbor for him to make the change.
FDR was indeed a Mason, initiated October 10th, 1911 in the Holland Lodge number 8 in New York City, rising to Master Mason in 1929, the Great Crash. He was no casual, the Great Crash, to then go create the fucking crazy society, the socialist society that was against all the everything that was in, it's fucking weird. Masonry wove into his, and that's Mondami, right? And what did Mondami, or what's his name? Fucking look at new guy.
Mondani.
Right? What did he say with Trump? Oh, FDR, the picture with FDR. Masonry wove into the elite networks, but that Thanksgiving flip, zero evidence to his lodge. No smoking lodge gun. Broader Masonic Thanksgiving vibe. Freemasonry does echo through the holiday's origins. Washington's 1789 proclamation, pushed by possible Mason Elias Boudinot, drips Masonic phrasing like divine providence and moral reflection. We talked about Sarah.
Sarah has a
Thanksgiving
Mason
crusader, had a Mason hubby who bankrolled her early work. Even Lincoln's 1863 version got scrubbed of Masonic language by anti-Mason Secretary Seward. FDR's move, just another Mason prez like Washington tweaking a tradition, but sans esoteric motive. Verdict from the board: if there's a hidden Masonic hand in FDR's Thanksgiving tweak, it's buried deeper than Atlantis. No credible sources. The Brotherhood angle shines brighter in the holiday's founding than the FDR's retail remix. Low signal. If you got a specific lodge or dark thread, see, I've got it to where it's like really real. Ship it or die. What's next, co-conspirator?
Well, like, why would a Mason want Thanksgiving at that time? I mean, what's happening? Like, let's look at astrologically.
It's moving it into Sagittarius.
But it's moving it. It was moving it back.
FDR wanted
into Sagittarius.
FDR wanted it to
Or
be
Scorpio.
the second, the third Thursday in, and he didn't get that, the backlash. So they made it the last Thursday.
But before, okay, what was it originally? Right? No, I'm confused.
Right? FDR issued an executive order to shift the date from the last Thursday to November to the second to last, November 23rd that year. Goal. But in the very end, the polls backlash and even college football schedules imploded by Congress locked it in the fourth Thursday permanently, and FDR signed it into law.
Okay.
So why was he trying to move it in could be Scorpio season some years?
Yeah, that's weird, because there was that Scorpio North Node, or was it that had just
On Thanksgiving Day.
eclipse.
Correct. Thanksgiving Day was, yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's
the
weird.
first Thanksgiving. So that's what I'm saying is like there's a lot more to this shit than goes on. And then it's about sales with FDR. The president who's in a wheelchair and who's all about everybody, let's give out free money and Social Security and all the big new deal and all this bullshit. Fucking,
but Fred Lazarus needs to make money.
but he needs to make money. And I'm a Mason. He's probably a Mason. So let's do it based off that. There's something off. There's something off. And then the fact that then people create this idea of Thanksgiving because the radio is just coming out where people could afford a radio in their house. FDR is the first president to speak on the airwaves in people's homes. So
everybody would go out and buy a radio.
Correct. So they have radio DJs like, it's Thanksgiving today. Make sure.
No, you have your Thanksgiving drama.
Make sure that you've got your turkey basted correctly. All of it's connected in a weird way.
But then George Washington made his first day of Thanksgiving just the 26th of November. Right. So why is FDR trying to move it away from that?
Is the story with George Washington and Thanksgiving and how he set that up? Oh, no wonder my computer's going to die.
Well, it's asking you to explore his Masonic proclamation. So I was thinking as I was reading that proclamation, he was saying so many things that do sound like a Masonic kind of understanding of God.
Right. Oh, it's so funny. It lost my signal because
You need a plug?
No, it's plugged in. I just got to like disconnect and connect it again.
Oh, okay.
So weird, actually. Like, this is kind of creepy that my computer goes out right when I'm about to fucking unearth.
Your thing.
Yeah.
Too much electricity.
It's like, I can't even. What the fuck is that? There's a fucking there's some weird ass spirits here for this shit right now.
What is it?
The last time this happened was 2019 when I was like predicting a plague, like screaming on Deep Astrology, August 2019. And this is the stuff that happened right now. Same thing, same feeling. There's something
about
fucking
my computer also, I can't get it to there. We've got sirens going by.
Like, that's scary. It's weird because I'd have to go in that history. Somebody, you know what? Like, when in Congress did they pass the bill, and did FDR sign it right away, or did he wait till after Pearl Harbor?
He waited till after Pearl Harbor, right?
Because, I mean, he signed it after Pearl Harbor, but did they push that through Congress, like during the fucking war fucking act? Like, like, that's what's really weird, is the whole thing is based upon the exact same timing of World War II.
There has to be some kind of a belief of you need to organize a community around a public Thanksgiving in order to get something. Or like, if you look at it from a ritual perspective, it has some kind of importance to do a collective Thanksgiving.
Yeah, like get everybody's money before we're going to war.
Well, economically.
Knowing we're going to go.
Yeah. But I feel like there's a ritual element to it as well.
There is a ritual. It reminds me, that's the hard part to tell people, is that there's a ritual.
So it just says
Good thing my computer won't even turn on.
All right.
It gave up on me. It was like, you know what? They shut me down. I'm not even kidding. Like, and I have a nice fucking MacBook Pro.
Yeah. That's crazy.
M3 Max plugged in. Doesn't even work now.
So, yeah, it just says Congress passes the resolution.
I told you, and you wait till
October
December
6th.
26th?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that is some dark shit right there. You wait 2.5 months to sign it when there's more important things like a World War II. You're like, oh, I guess I should sign the Thanksgiving thing now.
But that it started
on the day
out-
after Christmas? Charlemagne? December 25th.
Well, they waited probably till Christmas to be able to start sending people to the war too, right? Like it's sort of, will really make people support this war. I mean, you could look at it from that way as well. Like, let's have a national day of Thanksgiving. But it was already, when did he do the executive order? Because
He did it in 1939. So it ran for 2 years, then Congress, and everybody hates it, and football programs aren't going good, everything. It ruins everything. So then Congress goes, fuck you, and pushes it as, we're keeping it forever as the last Thursday. And they probably looked at the dates of it and been like, why are you trying to move it up? Because of shopping, to make it an extra week of shopping, which he gets through the executive order for 2 years.
Yeah, but then some people follow it, some people don't.
If you look up
Some people do
1939 when he did it, and then look up the land, the lease deal with the United Kingdom or Britain at the time, the land lease deal, right? It was I think, or was the Land Lease Act. It was enacted in 41, but we were sending shit prior to that one. 1940s destroyers for base agreements.
Here we could look, this is like an overview.
It's all connected. I'm telling you right now, this is going to mind blow people. It's all fucking Mason connected. It's connected with rituals, and you're following the weirdest shit now without realizing it wasn't about turkeys
or jelly beans or popcorn. So, but we can't look at the astrology of this moment because your computer died, right? I mean, are we connected? We are connected with Uranus in Taurus, or I know there's a connection to this time.
Yes, this is the end of Uranus and Taurus when this is happening. So this is Juneteenth. Biden pushed Juneteenth.
Oh.
And who did he have on his, he was a fake president anyways, a fucking robot, but FDR is who was over the fireplace.
And we just saw FDR come
And then
back.
we just saw FDR show up again with Trump and Mondami, like.
And people, before they were making a big deal of, oh, Trump moved him out. Because I was surprised, like, oh, he still has that portrait in the White House. And then he said, I found this one. It was in the basement. No one even wanted it. I found it. And we put this one up. Like, it was probably in the Masonic Lodge. Anyway, I don't know where.
No, it's true. Oh, I'm back.
It was probably in that area in the Capitol building where the foundation stone is.
This will be a good ending right here. George Washington's, I want to know where his mind was of creating this, because it wasn't like it's not in the Constitution after the convention. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. It's not in there.
And he was, okay, let me say this. He was so against royal rituals, right? He didn't want to be king. But doing a national day of Thanksgiving was the most royal thing. Like kings did that constantly. I was just looking at records in Ireland talking about doing a national Thanksgiving day for the king's birthday, in November, whenever it was. Because I was just thinking, it's interesting. It's always November because that's when the Guy Fawkes Day thing was too. But we won't go into that right now. So.
Right. So George Washington, freshly sworn in as president on April 30th in New York on Wall Street. Literally, right? Steering the experiment in self-rule, but unity shakes. States are still flexing old habits and economic scars linger. Enter Congress, September 25th, 1789. They passed a resolution urging Washington to declare a national day of Thanksgiving. Why? To rally the people around gratitude for the Constitution's blessings, peace, prosperity, religious freedom, and that hard-won independence. It's not just petty, it's political glue, a ritual to bind 13 factious colonies into the one we the people. Thanksgiving is used to fucking sell people about shit that's about like federalism. That's what it is. It's to sell people on federalism. It's interesting though that Washington is not a federalist or an anti-federalist. He never really showed his true colors, right? He never claimed either party, and he stayed. That's why they elected him president. They all voted for him president in the Continental Congress because he never took a side. The same way that he didn't even act like he wanted to be part of the war or anything, and they just made him in 1775. You're the commander of the Continental Army.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even ever raise his hand to do any of that shit. And he drug his feet October 3rd, 1789, the Federal Hall in Manhattan, which I've been there. That's crazy. It's right on Wall Street. It's still there. He pens and signs the proclamation. It's poetic, almost sermon-like, drafted with the help of William Rogers, a Philly reverend, and echoing biblical vibes, think Psalms. He calls for Thursday, November 26, 1789, as the big day. That's what it used to be called? The big day?
I don't think so. Where does it say that?
Oh, maybe, I mean,
I
it
think
just
it's
says
just being
as the big
informal.
day. Okay. A national pause for
Would be
public
great, though.
thanksgiving and prayer. So that's what it was sold as. Folks are to hit churches. What? Reflect on divine favors and beseech for more guidance for leaders, harmony among sit. That's exactly that's Robert Cushman's version. Success in agriculture and commerce. That's where they're getting the key excerpts from the doc, where it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey his will, not Jesus. They'll never say that anywhere. There's no Jesus in any government, United States, anywhere. They always only say Almighty God. To obey his will, to be grateful for his benefits, and humbly to implore his protection and favor. And whereas both houses of Congress have by their joint committee requested me to recommend to the people of the United States a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by acknowledging with grateful hearts the many signal favors of Almighty God. He ties it to the revolution's end, tranquility, union, and plenty, and the Constitution's genius, and hopes for the knowledge and practice of true religion and virtue. Churches overflow on the day when it comes in Boston to Charlestown. Sermons boom on national themes: unity over division, feasts, think harvest bounty, turkey, yep, early adopter, corn pies, communal toast to the framers. But it's a one-off, no actual lock-in yet. That drops with Lincoln in 1863. It's a one-off. And it's so weird.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it has got to do with the idea of needing to commemorate. I mean, it does go back to the Bible. And I mean, I'm obviously some other rituals as well. When you have a victory, you need to have the communal Thanksgiving. But why it starts to be done before the fighting is interesting too. Because why? 1863 is in the Civil War.
All right, my last question, then we're done with this
Okay.
shit, because I have to go, but I'm like, fuck, I just can't. Like, we're in this.
Oh yeah, I got some sweet potatoes to prepare.
I got to be up early. Take care of my kids.
Because you know it's all about the food.
My
It's all
wife, be there
about the
for them.
God belly god, whatever. Which is so
But,
crazy.
you know, this is high vibe. We're here for people and their thing. I know Thanksgiving's hard for some people. They don't have anybody to be with, or you have a strange family.
But
That's
that
what
way.
the real Thanksgiving really was. Family members were dead. Or now your daughter's married to this older dude that you were on the boat with, hearing him shit every day.
No, that's horrible.
Because like that's why I'm connected to like 8 of them, because like all these people died and it's like, oh, all the men that survived, like your little 14-year-old daughter, great, we're gonna get married, we need to procreate here. And they all did that to each other. It was insane. If you actually look that up, it's true. Masonic threads. So what I did is I put, how many Freemasons are connected to the Mayflower Society? Masonic threads in the Mayflower Tapestry, overlap hunt. The raw scan, no hard count, but deep ties. Exact membership overlap. Freemasons, 6 million global to 1 million of the General Society of Mayflower descendants. Isn't that crazy? It's like not that many people in America. Mayflower descendants, 30,000 members of the 35 million living descendants total. That's kind of weird. I'm one of those members. No joint consensus or lodge roles, but history is littered with crossovers. Early colonial Masons, post-1717, recruited from Puritan stock, including Mayflower lines. Founder era vibes, 13 Constitution signers were Masons, 33%. Many with Pilgrim adjacent blood. Modern, scattered nods in Mayflower mags to Masonic ceremonies and dual members. Grand Masters in the society. Facebook threads buzz with many present-day Masons traced to aristocratic Mayflower forebears. Rough estimate, hundreds in the society, elite overlap, thousands among broader descendants, but that's pattern matching, not payroll. Notable hits, presidents. So James Garfield, that's my actually most direct line to a president. Roosevelt, both of them.
Perish at anti-Mason riots.
Right. Well, that's why the anti-Mason movement they didn't have enough people or enough. Buzz Aldrin.
Gerald Ford.
The Holland Lodge. See that there's a lodge named after John Holland. New Deal architect Thanksgiving tweaker, as you probed earlier. Rough Rider Mason boosted U.S. Navy while in apron. Theodore Roosevelt. Garfield assassinated months end traced via Eliza Ballou line. And then Nixon pardoned pivot after Gerald Ford, right? And then the first moon golf, Masonic compress pointed him there, descendant in the maternal moon line. Oh man, like this is where George H.W. Bush, Mayflower via Holland, but not Mason, despite rumors. Early pubs like the Mayflower Descendant, 1900, Doc Masonic Cornerstone, rights for Pilgrim monuments, fraternal nod.
What's next, co-conspirator?
That's what I want people to think about.
Yeah.
Look at it's like saying Knights Templar, Mayflower links. Because my great-grandmother, her name is based off being from the Norman Knights.
Yep.
Then that's when you go before that to Charlemagne. That's where we're going to go next, because I don't think we'll get the answer. I guarantee you there's going to be a mock-up of Thanksgiving with something in Charlemagne during his time in Rome.
Yeah.
And a Thanksgiving in a Knights Templar order.
Yeah.
And a Thanksgiving probably going back to some weird, I guarantee you that's where we're going to lead in the next one, is that you're all watching a fucking weird ass world that has been... Washington and Lincoln are the two presidents we always learn that they're the big ones. They're the ones that create Thanksgiving.
They had their own holidays until it became
and they're the ones who have
President's
their,
Day.
yeah, right. I knew I'd get creepy down the well. So yeah. Oh, that's what did it say? It's a Templar Shadows. Discovered Pope Clement under King Philip, accused of heresy, blah, 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 no manifest, but the conspiracy web, a tangled tapestry of bloodlines. Fringe theories stitch Templars to Mayflower via survival sagas, noble. That's true, though. I just proved that in one line of mine, just like to Templar Knights orders. And then, Pilgrim progeny chasing the same ghost, Freemasonry, the glue claiming Templar rebirth. Oh. With Mayflower heirs donating aprons, here's the ledger of links. Pre-Mayflower Templar landfall. Templar fleet under Prince Henry Sinclair, 1398, hits Nova Scotia. Okay. Oh, anyway, FDR, Mayflower, Warren Holland funds 1930 digs for the Oak Island treasure chain.
Huh.
Mayflower passengers, Euro routes traced to Crusader Knights, some Templar adjacent, Norman barons who fought with them. That's my line. That is insane. John Holland's also my great-grandfather too, direct. Templar descendant societies. Freemason brother, Templar spirit reborn in Masonry. Thanksgiving is the holiday for the elites to disappear and do their honoring of, I'm only here in my position because of my bloodline. And that's what they're giving thanks to. So, and that's from somebody who has all the same shit and has it all. And that's the truth for the normie out there with Epstein's blood from the vaccine in you.
Okay. Well, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. You could thank Epstein. You know, that's what the docs are hiding. Because the work that he was doing at I'm going to blow your mind, man.
Uh-oh.
This will be my Thanksgiving treat to you and everybody out there.
Yay.
So he had his New Mexico ranch and he funded all the scientists, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then who was at the island? Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates with his money that he wanted for healthcare, vaccines, all that shit. Then it's weird that all the women that he was choosing are all Scandinavian white women. If you look at all the victims, they're all white women. What's her name? That Ghislaine Maxwell?
Mm-hmm.
All of her assistants were tall, white, male Scandinavian men with long hair that looked like Fabio.
Okay. So they're creating this
right. So
Scandinavian.
what the docs are is look at Epstein Island but why was the trafficking happening? Was it to get rid of elites and no. It was trafficking experiments on women and maybe people that never made it off New Mexico or there for what would become this whole new genome pushed on people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they got rid of them in 2020, like right there. That's what's going to come out one day. And maybe it won't, but that's what's going to come out. It was never about that. The women that are alive got pushed to there was so many other women at the New Mexico house. But those are actual facts and talking. And then of course they're connected to the oldest of the religions and they are in the ball cult.
Yeah, were you talking with Natalie about that on Full Disclosure?
Yeah, I'm about to do this whole thing about Jupiter and the ball cult.
Yeah.
That if you praise Jupiter, you're praising ball. That's why as astrologers, any good astrologer doesn't praise Jupiter. We hate Jupiter. Any astrologer that loves Jupiter is fucking insane. Their ball
What year
worship.
Sagittarius rising.
Yeah, it's the anti astrology is Jupiter.
Anti-astrology?
Yeah, because
or-
Hermes and Mercury's astrology. So any Jupiter obsessed astrologer out there is a ball worshiper.
Hmm.
Because the translations in the Bible of the idols, if you go back to after Babylon with Baal, it becomes Yahweh. So people who preach that's Baal, and then Jupiter during Roman times.
Hmm.
And in the original images of Baal, it's not the devil looking like, thing that you think with the boobs and all that shit. It's not that. It's fucking the Babylonian one, and the Mesopotamia Baal is just, it looks like a normal, like almost like an Egyptian, but it's with a little kid because it was about fertility. And what was Epstein's ranch about?
Right.
Fertility with his gene to be in everybody.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
And that's anybody go look up the cult, the ball and B8, and you're going to go, this whole kid thing isn't about what you think. It's genetically doing creepy stuff. So yeah, that's what's going to come out.
Hmm.
And
If it
guaranteed
does.
Thanksgiving is a day where a lot of these cult members go underground and do that shit, including presidents. That's why they're the ones that have to push it on people.
Interesting stuff. And it's FDR that, he really gives it away by having tried to
Change.
push that date so hard. And
I know. And it's weird with Washington that it was Congress that pushes the date. And same thing with Congress pushing it on FDR that he has to sign. So it's ironic.
But Congress pushed it to the later one.
Right.
And FDR was trying to get that earlier date, which is really
Right.
weird to me. Yeah.
Or even weirder that they had picked for Washington the November 26th.
Yeah, we'll have to look at why that is or try to investigate that.
Yeah, that'll be, so anyway.
Because I was looking to see, was that a traditional holiday already or what?
Oh,
You know?
did you even think about why they're called pilgrims? When was the last time in history prior to 1620 that pilgrims were part of?
Yeah, the Canterbury, not the Canterbury Tales, but religious pilgrims, right? Doing pilgrimages.
During the Templar Knights guarded Holy Land pilgrims.
Yeah. Well, that's how they thought of themselves. They thought they were going to establish that.
Or
new
that they were
order.
the lines of those
Yeah.
pilgrims.
Well, yeah. Well, with all the DNA stuff in Ancestry, we should all be able to see what kind of DNA they have.
Listen to this. But myths if Templars smuggled esoterica to America, pilgrims' rigid faith might have clashed or covertly carried the torch via blood and brotherhood. X-chatter, sparse, mostly Templar lore drops, no Mayflower fireworks, upload a family tree or dig site map, all pattern crushed for your personal grail. Actually, I don't want you to know that. Wrong.
Well,
But
yeah, anyway, we don't need to continue on because
yeah, I gotta go.
there are sweet potatoes that need to be
And I gotta
prepared
go
for
too.
tomorrow.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Read that sermon.
Yeah.
Don't fill your belly.
All right.
Yo. Okay.
Mm.